G'day, folks. AoS Coach here, and we're talking Daughters of Khaine. First off, massive apology. I got a wisdom tooth pulled out literally like 3.5 hours ago. So if I go delusional or if my mouth goes seriously in pain, please bear with me on this one. But I am super excited, one, to have Dale back, the Crone Herald of Morai-Heg, but also Hag, but also Daughters of Khaine being one of my favorite personal armies. And spoiler, been playing around with my new terrain feature, 130 mil base. It's a big boy. We're into a new book. The new book is certainly different, and Dale and I are going to talk about our observations, our thoughts. I think there's a lot of play testing to come out of this. What I'm feeling so far is that it's much more of like a OBR, not in a bad way. Like, I know some people had some really negative takes on OBR, and now they're starting to realize it isn't so bad after all. But there is a fundamental shift with how we're going to play. And Dale and I have been talking constantly around how we unpack this battle tome, and what we used to run and what do we run now, and what has merit, what has value. How do we start overlaying all of these insights? So we're going to have a really interesting discussion. I think a lot of experience and application on the tabletop is still to come. So we're probably going to learn this all together. But Dale, no stranger, massive anti-Morathi person that you are. You are all about Crethusa, big lover of the avatars. G'day, welcome, talk to the peeps, and maybe without like spoiling Christmas, how you feeling about this battle tome?
Thank you very much for the introduction and having me on again. Welcome to everyone who's joining us. If we get anything wrong in our conversations, we're going to blame it on his teeth getting done. So we're all good there.
My whisper
How do I
it's killing me. It's killing me.
How to think about the new edition is basically take everything you thought was historically safe. So every time you've had a new book, the same things, the same stables have changed. That's gone out the window. We're into a whole brave new world, and take a breath. It's different. It's not necessarily bad different, but it's gonna, as you said, require play testing and learning. I think a lot of the initial thoughts is like, how do we do this? Or what do I do for this? Or how is this going to be a thing? And it's like, okay, how do we get this on the tabletop? But also remembering the fact of, in a couple of months' time, we're potentially looking at a new general's handbook. We're looking at the soggy stuff being gone. So, there's going to be changes in general over the next couple of months. And also, we're probably looking at ogres, Sylvaneth still to come out as well. There's going to be a lot of ripples coming in the next few months. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, and let's remember the fallen when we get to them, and let's get into this. I think it's going to be fun, and I'm exciting to get this on the tabletop.
And spoiler, Dale, Sylvaneth is happening at the exact same time. So if you're watching this live,
interesting.
Sylvaneth is dropping at the exact same time. Some very spicy things. I think, just little spoiler here, the time of the goddesses is certainly back. So Morathi and Alariel, whoa. I think Alariel got the better one, but I'm a big fan of Morathi. I will just add on to what you've said. So I don't want to be toxically positive on this one. Where do I stand on Doc? I think it's super interesting. It's very, very different. Different not in a bad way, but it's different enough that the list that I've run that have worked for me, especially with like arena veterans and, using some of the things in the last couple of months, I've thrown completely out the window. Some things that are still working to this day. But there's a whole bunch of new options. It's not just the terrain feature. It's not just the new blood hags, which are really cool, little fiddly, much more fiddly than your witch elves. But there's a whole bunch of changes here. So I think my advice to you at this point is, as you go through this review and as you start thinking about your doc list, don't just grab your doc list that was working 2 months ago and then try to wedge it in. Really take a step back, look at your collection and say, how do I make the most of this? That's probably my biggest advice. Some things that I used to love are no longer there. Some things that I have always wanted have actually come back or are here. So I think for me, a lot needs to be played around. And yes, spoiler, we are losing a unit. or technically 2, kinda. One's a weird one. One's a very weird one.
Technically 4, if we think
Well,
about it, but yeah, it's weird. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll tease it.
don't at me on my own channel. All right. You are also technically correct. All right, let's bring up Daughters of Khaine. Let's actually talk a lot about this. So, first and foremost, what you knew about the tables. Oh, by the way, if you want to support the channel, please Warpfire Minis, Element Games, and Gap Games. Please help the channel. Always appreciate it. Much love. So back to what I was going to
Also,
say.
give a big like and subscribe if you're not to
Of
Coach,
course.
because think about every time he does these videos, the time he takes to do this. He's a legend in the community. So yeah, support him as much as you can.
All right, Dale, I'll send the money to you in a second. It's all good. So, table gone. I think it's a good thing. Table gone because table was predictable. Table was annoying. I love some of the benefits, but the fast pace of the game meant that it was a really conflict between going and slapping my opponent and waiting till turn 3 to get the good stuff in. Table gone. Let's talk about what the army is all about now. So,
And strikes first gone as well.
yeah,
strike first, strike twice.
Strike twice. Well, yeah, there's some
In a way.
everything you knew about the army gone. So, start. The Anointed Ritualist. Start the first battle round. If there's no friendly ritualist, you pick a non-unique Daughters of Khaine hero. They are going to be what's called an anointed unit, right? Now, the target is an anointed for the rest of the battle, even if the unit has been destroyed. Friendly anointed units on the battlefield treat exalted abilities on their war scrolls of friendly anointed units that have been destroyed as if they were on their war scroll. So, I pick a Iron Scale Medusae and I make that my ritualist. Cool. I can then go out, it goes, does some things, and then what happens? And if you look at the Bloody Succession, which is the one on the far right, each time a friendly anointed unit is destroyed after removing it from play, you can immediately use the anointed ritualist ability as if it was the first start of the first battle round. So basically, you get one hero. Let's go, for example, the High Gladiatrix or the Iron Scale Medusae. You've made it, you're anointed. You go rush it into combat and it dies. You then trigger the Bloody Succession. You then pick another non-unique Daughters of Khaine hero. It then becomes the anointed. But any abilities that are marked exalted, and there are a fair few of them on the war scroll, each of them have basically one unique exalted war scroll ability, will then carry over. So the ability that was sitting on the High Gladiatrix that is now dead is now sitting on my Cauldron of Blood, who I've appointed as the second anointed after I've triggered this ability. So as these heroes start dying, I get to stack more and more abilities off these anointed units that are dead. That's not the only ability where the anointed comes in. Dale, any thoughts so far?
So it's interesting because obviously as we come to the next stage is the anointed does trigger a lot of other abilities across the army. It's really good in the sense of like, okay, I have this ability I really want to keep, but I need that person to get into combat and I'm going to lose it if they die. You're not going to lose it if they die. It's going to transfer to your next hero. As long, and this is where the tricky bit is, you have more unique non-unique Daughters of Khaine's heroes. So if you're running Morai-Heg, you're not going to get to use this unless you have a couple of non-unique Daughters of Khaine's hero. Same if you're running the Crone, because she's unique. So yeah, every army, if you now want to take advantage of blood rights, and I mean, you still can without them, but it's just more difficult. But even other areas of the army, so when we come to Strident Warcry, for instance, you need to have that anointed hero in there. So yeah, it's definitely a change. It makes your heroes more valuable in a sense, but also if they die, it's not the end of the world. Some of those abilities will pass over to another anointed as long as you have some in your list.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's plenty of abilities, and we'll go to those abilities when we get to them. But just understand, appoint a hero, it remains anointed while it's on the table. If it dies, pass the anointed title to another hero that isn't unique Daughters of Khaine. And you carry over the exalted ability. This is where it starts getting interesting, and you've made a really interesting point there as well, because I have been playing a lot of Daughters of Khaine lists with Morathi, and it's like, well, is Morathi worth it, given that, do I just completely throw away this anointed ability? But here comes the blood rights. So you perform a blood right each time an enemy unit is destroyed, and any damage points were allocated to this unit by a friendly anointed unit in combat in the same turn. A friendly anointed unit is destroyed. A friendly unit contesting an objective you control is destroyed. An enemy unit is destroyed by a friendly Daughters of Khaine unit's attacks, and any models in the enemy units were contesting an objective you do not control in the same phase. Or a friendly enemy or a friendly unit is destroyed, and it's within 3 inches of a place of power at the start of the phase. Now, one thing I will call out here, it is important to Krathusa and Morathi, is you can trigger multiple blood rights in one sequence. So if you had a anointed hero dead within place of power 3 inches, you would trigger 2 of those abilities. In 99% of the situation, doesn't mean anything. But when you talk to Krathusa, you talk to Morathi, it is important. Dale, anything from you?
So you're going to look at this and go, okay, so how do blood rights affect things? So obviously at the start of the game now, you don't automatically get your blood right table. So everything's now the Blessing of Khaine, which is great because when we get to it, you'll see you can actually pick and choose when you activate things. But it means at the start, you have nothing until you activate one of these blood rights. And this is where it kind of becomes interesting for the army, because essentially you either need to kill something while holding an objective, or something needs to die. Either a unit contesting an objective they control, or something within a place of power, or an anointed hero, which then gets you to the point of, okay, so I either need to kill something or something has to die. Makes a big difference to how the army was. We're so used to automatically just getting our rights for free. Now you have to earn them. It's kind of in a way a bit like I think of like the corn blood tithe, where they have to have units on the table die. It's a little bit the same way. It's like, okay, most of the stuff involves you either killing things in a specific condition or stuff dying in a specific condition. So it's something you're going to have to think about, where if you want to activate your Blessings of Khaine during the game, you need to build your army list that's going to be able to do a blood right a turn to be able to access those blessings.
Yeah, really good call. And one of the conflicting things that I've had in my my own list building is that if you don't get anointed. So one of the lists that I was really excited to build was a Morathi Krathusa list, because there's a lot of really good synergy there. And I mentioned like the double blood rights and things. But then that doesn't really leave me a lot of space for anointeds, or the anointeds that I really want to tap into. Because like the anointeds that are really going to make the most value are your cauldron varieties, whether it's Blood Rack, Slaughter Queen, or Hag Queen. Like they're your biggest bang for bucks. Yes, you got your Iron Scale, your Medusa, your High Gladiatrix, your Hag Queens on foot, but they're not going to really be able to like make the most of a lot of this stuff. They might be your first dead one, and the exalted ability goes to like that Super Saiyan cauldron. But if you don't play into the anointed space too much, then, and like let's say you do what I just said, like Krathusa and Morathi are my 2 main heroes, then I lose 2 of the 5 options to generate blood rights. So thinking about whether it's going to be a sacrificial hero that dies and can start triggering the blood rights into the blessings, or you've got somebody like I said, the Iron Scale Medusa, for example, who can go out and slap. It's worth considering how you build your list, and how much of this you want to play into. But
Especially when you come to later things in the list as well, where like the next one, Strident Warcry, is an anointed. So if you don't have an anointed, if you've done your double special hero, you're suddenly losing that ability, and it's quite an impactful ability.
let me hold on Strident Warcry for 1 second, because I think it makes perfect sense to go from blood right to blessing.
Blessings.
Then I'll loop back to Strident. So we do some blood rights, whether it is like something dies, something is killed, some damage, whatever. We trigger it, right? As long as we triggered it once, again, ignoring the Morathi Krathusa comment that I made a little earlier, we trigger it once. Let's say a unit, friend or foe, died within 3 inches of a place of power. Cool, box ticked. We then go to the Blessings of Khaine, where once per turn, army, end of any turn. If you can only use this blood right if you use this ability if you performed any blood rights this turn. Notice that it says any, like it's not like for every blood right you get to trigger a blessing. It's just as long as you've done one, you trigger a blessing. You get to pick one of the following blessings that is not active. The blessing is active, and while the blessing is active, it applies to friendly Daughters of Khaine units. So it's board wide. The effects of one or more blessing can apply to a unit at the same time. Great. So we're basically going to be like stacking up benefits, much like we had on a table, but it's way more dynamic. So what can I do? I can get +1 to hit rolls for combat, +1 to wound rolls for combat, +3 inches to movement characteristic. If those units charge in the same turn, they have a 5+ ward for the rest of the turn. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for shooting attacks that target the unit. Those units can charge and or shoot even if they retreated, and +1 to chanting and casting rolls that turn. So a lot of cool things, and unlike the table, we're not locked to a sequence of 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. We get to control, much like anyone who's looked into Lumineth, you pick the runes that are working for you. But unlike the runes, it actually is going to affect the army overall.
And I think as well, the fact of it's end of any turn. So again, it goes back to when you're designing your army list, you're going to be wanting to play where, okay, in my turn, I can score a blessing. In their turn, I can score a blessing. And it's kind of having that thinking where the more blessings you can score, as long as you can get a blood right done each turn, each battle round, each my opponent's turn, my turn, then you're going to be able to stack these up quite quickly as long as you're building for that. If you're not going in prepared with the blood rights, what I need to do to score these to get my blessings, then you're going to kind of find yourself losing a lot of those positive effects for your army.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a real sequencing thing because I'm unlikely to score a blood right at the top of turn 1. Do I go super aggressive at the bottom of turn 1 to try to start triggering an ability? I mentioned a little earlier, like let's say, for example, a sacrificial high gladiatrix or a iron scale, and there's some spells and prayers that really allow you to go like like a real like trade piece with those units. So, like, if you really want to go out and try to start triggering this early and sacrifice one of those units, you absolutely can, especially with some of the abilities we'll talk to later. But should you? And is it worth it? So it's a really interesting little mechanic. Obviously, love the +1 to hit, love the +1 to wound. +3 movement is great. And there are some ways to manipulate, much like Lumineth Realm Lords, changing some of the blessings as well. So, like, if you start off with the +3 moving as your first ability, but then you don't really need it as you're grinding it out, you can absolutely swap out the Blessings of Khaine through some certain abilities that I won't ruin just yet. But most of them are pretty useful, right? Like +1 to chanting and casting, being able to, like, charge and retreat. Like, there's some good stuff here.
There's a lot of flexibility, especially when we used to be stuck in. So everyone knew turn 1 you run, turn 2 you charge, turn 3 you hit, turn 4 you wound, turn 5 if you got there was +1 attack. But now it's like, okay, I'm against KO. Let's take the +1 for shooting. I'm against an Alpha Strike army. Let's take retreat and charge. Because then at least I can get out of that trap of being stuck in and be able to move around still and get some charges with some later on abilities. So yeah, it actually gets you to pick and choose. And also, if you're wanting to alpha, if you're wanting to really push, if you can get a blood right turn 1 and get +1 to hit in turn 1, turn 2, that's a really good impact for you.
The negatives here, though, Dale, is that if you don't trigger a blood right, you get
Yep.
nothing. So unlike our old table where I just sit there passively and get something good, I now need to go work for it. So I need to have that friendly unit contesting objective and destroying, doing some damage allocation from my anointed. I'm going to have to do stuff. So
Yep.
how that works with your battle tactics and your list selection, obviously, like we'll discuss this way more. And then finally, the Strident Warcry. Once per turn, you declare a charge from the anointed unit. Pick a friendly non-heroes Daughters of Khaine unit that is not in combat, wholly within 12 inches of the anointed, has not charged this turn to be the target. If the anointed unit charges after the charge ability has been resolved, the target can immediately use the charge ability, even if it's not your charge phase. Sounds like a pretty good use of countercharge. In addition, you can re-roll the charge for the target for the rest of the phase. So
Yeah.
that reminds me of a little vampire lord on Steam that Blood Knight players absolutely love.
Yeah. And as you said, the counter charge element of this, being able to charge in not only a hero, but bringing in an entire another unit into this as well, especially with other abilities that we'll come to later on the line, has a real big impact into our kind of like defensive counterplay.
So overall, obviously there's pros and cons here. We're not locked to a table. We're gonna have to work for it. We don't get the fight twice CP ability, but we've got plenty of things being offered to us. Certainly, what I said to you guys earlier, it's different. It's not bad. It's just different.
It's a brave new world. We got
It's
this.
a
We'll be
brave new
fine.
world. Anything else you want to add here, Dale, before we get into some of the other stuff?
No, I think as we start getting through later on, you'll start seeing how a lot of this stuff overlaps.
Yeah, so really think through like the anointed piece, thinking about some of this scoring of blood rights, the blessing of Khaine. Your blood hags are going to play into this role. The blood rights, remember if you're playing Marathi or Krathusa, is going to play into this. So you'll want to remember this table or at least take a screenshot at this particular moment. But we'll talk about that in a second. Or maybe a couple more seconds. You got your battle formations. Again, this is entirely new here. Coven of Blood, Frenzied Devotees, Cold-Hearted Murderers, and your Feverend Ritualists. Just by the way, I'm not talking about any soggy things because soggy is going to drop off probably in 3 or so months' time. So obviously, between now and June, July, you're welcome to play SOG. It hasn't changed. SOG your heart away. I'm going to focus purely on the Battletome and then knowing that maybe there'll be some new SOG stuff coming down the line. But, if you want to play Arena Veterans, go play it. Cool. So you've got Coven of Blood here. While each model in a friendly Daughters of Khaine unit is contesting an objective you control, those models are not visible to enemy models more than 9 inches away. Frenzy.
If you're an KO meta, that's fantastic. Or even magic heavy meta.
Yeah.
Like, and I think the best thing about that as well is Daughters of Khaine units. So your Marathi, your snakes, your everything, your cauldron. Yes, we lost obscuring recently with the cauldron changes for war machines, but the fact of that still now is everything is huge. If you want to play that way, more defensively using those objectives.
Yeah, and it does help you not be so dependent on your cauldron for a +1 to your save as well. So obviously that benefits and doubles down, but that does help you a lot move up the board. Your frenzied devotees, once per turn, army start of enemy turn. Pick a enemy wizard or priest on the battlefield to be the target. Roll a dice for each objective you control. On a 3+, subtract 1 from casting rolls and chanting rolls for the target for the rest of the turn. I love this. I actually really love this ability.
Could you imagine having this against Nagash? And then suddenly every single one of his casts is -2 or 3 potentially.
Yes. Obviously, like your supercasters, your doubles, your triples, well, your Nagashes. I love it for priests as well, right? Because like -1, -2 to a priest is pretty heavy, right? Like, you got a couple of objectives. You can probably guarantee a -1 to a -2 to chanting rolls. That can be brutal to a priest. And obviously the flexibility of if there's no priest, you go to raw wizard. Yeah, love it.
Yep. And it's the start of the enemy turn as well. So if that priest is trying to countercast in your turn and they've got that on them as well, or it's the rest of the turn, so that won't really affect the countercasting. But yeah, as you said though, definitely being able to subtract 1 from any dice rolls if they're trying to get those bigger high level abilities is pretty impactful.
Yeah, that's good. But you are going for the 3 up, but
Yeah.
I do like it.
Usually you have at least 2 objectives, so 2 chances of 3+, you should get at least 1.
You should at least be a -1.
And also get used to rolling 3+s for the new Daughters of Khaine book as well.
Cold-Hearted Murderers, you declare a fight ability for an anointed unit, obviously used by an anointed. Pick a friendly non-hero Daughters of Khaine unit that has not used a fight ability this turn and is within the anointed unit's combat range to be the target. The target can then be picked to use a fight ability immediately after the fight ability used by the anointed unit has been resolved. If you do so, the target's melee weapons have crit auto wound for the rest of the turn. If the melee unit already had crit auto wound, they now have crit mortals for the rest of the turn.
Spicy.
Very good for our cauldrons.
Mm-hmm.
Very good for our cauldrons. Obviously not limited to, but obviously very good for cauldrons. And then finally, Pfeifer Ritualist. So once per turn, army, end of any turn, pick each friendly Daughters of Khaine unit contesting objective to be the target. Then return up to D3 slain models to the target that has a health characteristic of up to 2. Return up to 1 slain model if they have a health characteristic of 3. So basically, our soggy, not the arena veterans, the other one.
Coven Zealots, I think it is. Yeah, basically, this is in preparation of that going away.
Overall, I think all 4 of them are solid. I don't think there's a bad one here. There's probably a little bit.
I really like Coven and Blooded Cold-Hearted Murderers for myself. Both, it really depends on what you're playing a lot against or how you like your play style. Because being able to be invisible for shooting and magic, like if it's a line of sight one, can be pretty good. Like, but it also means you're having to hug those objectives because it's for every model contesting the objective. So your whole unit has to be on it, or your hero has to be on it. So yeah, it's definitely it's interesting. Gone are away are as you said, like I read someone talk about Shadow Patrol the other day, and it's like, sorry, Shadow Patrol's gone. It's like Hagnar. I missed that dearly, but that's gone as well. But these are, as you said, everything has play and is interesting.
Yeah, I don't think there's a bad one. I think they're obviously meta dependent. I think you're right. Coven and the Cold-Hearted Murderers are definitely probably the more popular of the two. But what happens if we go into remember when we had the General's Handbook at the end of the season, which was just all magic, right? We had the magic dice and we were going mad. Frenzied Devotees actually might be really good. So I don't think there's any bad ones here. I think it'll just depend on your preference. If you want to be a bit more cagey with the Coven, do you want to be more killy with the Cold-Hearted? Do you want to play Recursion with, your Pfeifer Ritualist? Will combine really nicely with the Slaughter Queen on the Cauldron. There'll be a lot of really interesting play styles depending on what you want to play with, right? But overall, I think all solid.
Yep.
Nothing to new heroic traits. So we have Shadow-Blooded, Hand of Khaine, Murderous Duelist. I think there's some definite winners on this one, but also I don't think there's any bad ones, right? So Shadow-Blooded, you declare a redeploy command for a Daughters of Khaine unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit. And if you roll a 1, 2, or 3, you treat it as a 4. You have
Is that the whole expanded issue across most armies now, that one?
Yeah, but I play with my Hellsmiths that I just finished playing. It's on the War Scroll. I'm like, why am I picking a hero to have this? But yeah, it was on was it Lumineth? Was it Lumineth had it? One of them, or OBR had it. I don't know.
Used to have it too.
Yeah, obviously really good, but would I pick my hero trait for this?
Yeah,
I don't know. Hand of Khaine though. Hold my beer, my friend. Any combat phase, pick an enemy hero in combat to be the target. Roll 2d6. If the roll exceeds the target's health characteristic, it's automatically destroyed. If the target is destroyed by this ability, it can use 2 fight abilities this phase. After the first fight is used, however, it uses Strike Last for the second. So a little bit of High Gladiatrix's old little 2d6 auto slay. But at the start of combat,
any combat round as well, yeah. So if you can just tag those little heroes in, the chance of rolling that 5 or 6, and the fact if it's instantly destroyed, there's no ward save, there's no ignore the first damage, it's just dead, and then you get to strike twice. That's pretty spicy.
Yeah, this is like you running a cauldron. This is a perfect heroic trait for a cauldron. Finally, you got the Murderous Duelist. Again, any combat phase, pick an enemy unit that has no more than one model and is in combat with this unit to be the target. Roll 2d6. If the roll equals or exceeds the target's control characteristic, for the rest of the turn, if this unit's in combat with the target, when the target is picked to use a fight ability, all of the target's attacks must target this unit. Interesting.
It's one of those ones where I feel like against Ushron, it could be very good, where he can make things strike last and he can slap, where suddenly if he now has to target a hero instead of attacking all your units that can hurt him, because I think he's control 5 most of the time, all those monsters that are control 5, where you're worried about them doing a lot of damage to your unit, but maybe it's on that hero that you want to sacrifice to get your blood right. And it's like, cool, not only am I keeping my unit alive, but I'm getting that hero targeted. That hero is going to die. I'm going to lose this afterward, but it now means I'm on my blood right table.
Yeah, I could see my initial thoughts on this one is like, while it's not as strong as Hand of Khaine, if I was running, let's say, a Medusae or an Iron Scale, chuck it on that, tie up the, especially like if you got like 10 snakes, for example, or 5 snakes, you don't want those 5 snakes to be hit because they're going to hit that versus, hitting a Medusae if they had the choice. But soaking up all the damage, getting a couple of those blood right triggers, protecting one of those squishier units like your Blood Sisters. I don't mind it. I don't mind. It's a particular playstyle. All the High Gladiatrix would be another one who could benefit from this. And then you pass on that exalted ability to the Cauldron or something.
It's also used for the fact that it's an enemy unit with no more than one model, not just a hero. So those large beast monsters or, something that's like a big, annoying threat, at least you can kind of tag it and hold it up a little bit.
100%. And there's some good ways of and again we talking about like some really good movement tricks where you could go send out that sacrificial hero with Murderous Duelist, tie it up, trigger a couple of blood rights, spare some of your other units. There's some interesting plays, much more techy than the Hand of Khaine, but again, all 3 of them are solid. But Hand and then Murderous probably are the more popular choices, I think. Do you disagree with that?
No, I agree. Yeah. I think Hand's the kind of big one. I know it's only a hero, but the fact of you can bypass ward saves or ignoring first damages and stuff is really, I mean, if you think about having someone with this versus that kind of like corn army with the hero spam, like just being able to just pick up a hero one at a time kind of thing in every combat phase could be pretty great. And you're getting to strike twice.
Yeah, I dig these a lot. Artifacts of Power. So again, we have a whole new option here. We've got the Crimson Draft where you get to re-roll charge rolls for this unit. You get the Darkling Elixir where end of your turn, pick a visible friendly Daughters of Khaine unit wholly within 12 inches to be the target. Roll a dice. On a 3+, the target can immediately use a retreat ability as if it was your movement phase. Notice that it doesn't talk about ignoring damage. Just notice that. And then it also says, which brew your hero phase, pick a visible, friendly, non-unique Daughters of Khaine unit wholly within 12 inches to be the target. Roll the dice. On a 3+, ignore negative modifiers to save rolls for the targets until the start of your next turn. Now, I think you and I have a different pick on our list when we get to it. What are your thoughts on these?
So all are interesting in how you're playing. So if you're wanting to go for that counter-charge army, having Crimson Draft mixed with the ability to charge with a hero and then pick a unit and that unit gets rerolls, suddenly you're getting the rerolls on both units. So, that 6-inch countercharge, 8-inch countercharge that was before was a little, is this a risk? Suddenly it becomes a lot more interesting because you have the reroll and the reroll on the unit. So that's good.
And remember, you can't re-roll a countercharge, right? You can't normally do that. So this is one way to bypass that,
which is nice. So it just gives you that ability, and also another way to say CP as well. Darkling Elixir is if depending on obviously how tactics go, this could be a really interesting way of being able to because it's the end of your turn, be able to get in and kind of have an infantry unit be able to pull out and come and do something, because it's like immediately uses a retreat ability. So if you have something like with the +3 movement on, and you're suddenly able to move an extra 9 inches out of combat, so you can rally next turn or steal an objective or something. Because obviously, Daughters of Khaine, a lot of our infantry can't power through. So it's a risk because it is a free plus, but it's also, yeah, you could take damage. But if you're also taking the sub faction where you're being able to bring models back anyway, kind of could counter that. It just gives you something where you can get things into maybe little positions where they can get in behind units you couldn't get into before. And for me, Witch Brew, again, it's a 3+ roll, but being able to give that, Cauldron a ignore negative modifiers, or that infantry unit ignore negative modifiers, it could be very interesting, especially if you're stacking other saves available. But again, being a 3+ roll, at least in your hero phase if you're going to have it or not. It's not the start of the shooting phase. It's not the start of the combat phase. So at least it's like, okay, I can use this and go, or I didn't get it. Maybe I have to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah, that's a really good call out. If it was a combat phase ability, then it's like, well, I'm stuck now and I failed that 3 up. But you're right, it's a hero phase ability. So if you fail it, you might hold back, you might, just do it a little differently. I went the Crimson Draft in my list. I really like this. Again, whether it's that suicidal unit that I want to get the blood rights in and just get it ASAP, go get it killed, or some type of chariot, for example, cauldron variety that can go trigger that in addition to the anointed stuff we said a little earlier. I think there's some really good stuff in that. Duckling Elixir, again, I think is a little bit more techy. I really like it, to your point, stealing objectives, rallying. There's some really interesting things you can do there, but you are relying on the 3 up. And then obviously Witch Brew is pretty solid too. So again, I think all 3 are solid. Depending on your play style, I'm not unhappy with any of these as
Yeah, in
options.
some ways with the counter charge things, if you're kind of wanting to trap people in, it's like, oh, I'm going to charge that unit and it's just one unit. Then suddenly they have a hero and another unit with a reroll coming in. That is kind of spicy too. I do like that.
Yeah, and obviously, like, some people are gonna be upset, like, the Canite Pendant, for example, was a great way to kickstart your ritual points. I understand, I get it. Same even, like, Sevenfold Shadows, I love being able to use some cheeky teleports. So, obviously, I'm acknowledging that we have lost some things, whether it's a heroic trait and obviously not having Zealous Orator, for example, and those certain things. Um, but I think we're okay. Like, I don't think we've lost a lot just yet.
Yeah, I like
Just
it how there's not just an auto choice. Like with a lot of the stuff, you used to see the same combos a lot. So with both these gifts and the artifacts and the command ability kind of things, is you actually have a bit of flexibility. There's no like bad decision.
yeah, yeah, agreed. And there is a kind of little funny way to get Zealous Orator, kinda.
Hmm.
We'll talk about. This is an interesting one. This is an interesting one. So first off, Steed of Shadows casting value of 6. It used to be, is it 5?
5, I think it was. Yeah.
5, so it's a little harder, but it makes sense. You can get the +1 to casting and some of the interactions with our Dark Temple Shrine. It's still run and charge, run and charge. And obviously it's unlimited, right? So multiple wizards will mean that you can get multiple Steed of Shadows. It is what it is. It's a good spell. What we lost Doomfire. So Doomfire completely disappeared and has been replaced by the Black Horror of Ulgu. Casting value of 6. Daughters of Khaine unit. Pick up to 3 enemy units. Pick a point on the battlefield within 18 inches and then pick 3 enemy units within 3. Those targets cannot run until the start of your next turn. And then finally, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about here, Mind Razor not only went down a casting value, yay, we actually completely changed it. So the target's melee weapons now have charge +1 damage until the start of your turn. Remind us, what did we used to have? No,
We used to get +1 damage when we charge, but also rend 1. But that also didn't require the charge.
Yeah. Yes, so it used to be +1 rend, and then if you charge +1 damage. So we lost the +1 rend altogether.
Yeah.
I don't know
Also,
how
the
to
fact
feel
if it's charge plus 1 damage now, so how they've worded it, it means it's probably more effective for units like Lumineth Wardens that ignore charge plus 1 damage effects. So I think how it was worded before, it kind of bypassed that, but this new version of the wording, it's gone. You don't get it against those units. It's interesting because losing. So first of all, Black Horror of Uglu is a very good spell for us, I think. Being against those matchups, like the fact it's a 6 to cast is not heavy. Being able to pick a point in the board and stop 3 units within 3 inches of that. If you think about the ogre armies, when they have the hero with the run and charge and they can get the units to run and charge, if you can suddenly stop those front ranks having run and charge, it's going to really hurt their speed. So I think that's a very useful spell. And yeah, State of Shadows is the same as it was. Yeah, it's gone up by 1 point, which isn't the end of the world. Still unlimited. It's still a shame we don't have our musicians anymore that gave us run and charge, but I understand, things change. But yeah, the Mind Razor used to be the crutch of the army, where a lot of the time that was the go, no go for people if they could get Mind Razor off. Being on an 8 with no pluses in the army apart from Marathi, it was always a hard gamble. So now it also almost feels like it's like, do I necessarily, especially when we come to some of the other stuff, do I necessarily need to have a spell anymore? Is this like I need this to be my go turn, have the spell go off, and if it doesn't, then my plans are kind of ruined? Or is it a case of, do I just not bother? Do I cast something else more interesting, especially manifestation changes later on?
Yeah, there's an interesting one. Actually, there's two technically. Um, I think what it also makes things really interesting is that blessing of cruelty, where this unit can charge and shoot even if it retreats. So, having the ability to then charge, get out, and then like go in again for the +1 damage. It's an interesting choice, and I think to your point, yes, I clearly liked Old Mine Razor better. Like, I
Mm.
can't debate it. Give me back Old Mine Razor. It's gone. I can't have it. I mean, ignore it then. The fact that I'm now not as dependent on a go turn, I think that probably is a little bit liberating for me because then I'm like, right, okay, I can just play it out. If I get the +1 damage, amazing, but I'm not so dependent on it. And I'm probably
Mhm,
looking at
mhm.
more of these ways to like through the blessings to get crit auto wound, crit mortals. I'm not looking at Ren stacking as much as I needed to. But obviously, I'd much prefer to have Old Mine Razor if it was there.
Yeah, even on an 8, having that option there would have been good. If I think a lot of it was the rend, being able to get the extra rend as well. But yeah, the times change.
It is what it is. All right, but the spells are solid. Like again,
Yeah.
they're not bad, but obviously having Old Mind Razor was clearly better.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, but what we also have is these prayers of the Canaanite cult. So we've seen two new ones and a tweak to the Covenant of the Iron Heart. Yes, again, the old prayer law from Soggy is still available, so you absolutely can use that. What's happened? So Covenant of the Iron Heart used to be a 4, it's now a 3, but it's changed as well. So you can see that it used to be ignore negative modifiers to target's control score. If the chant value was 8, you add 5 to the control score as well. This has certainly changed where you add 10 to the target's control score to the end of the turn. In addition, if it was 6 plus, ignore the first point that would be allocated damage points allocated in each phase. That's nice. And
Hmm,
it's a
hmm.
little bit easier. Probably works better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's better, right? Because you're not ignoring the negative modifiers to the control score, and then you'd obviously be adding to your control score. While now I just get a flat 10, and I get the ignoring of damage points. So that's a win. That's a win. That's a straight win.
Yeah. Ignoring a damage points is always good. Being able to do that. But yeah, I mean, Dance of Doom's very similar to one of the ones we got recently with the soggy one. It's kind of a mixture of the both. But for me, the fact of Catechism being the giving the auto wound and you're unlimited. So it's like it's not a feel bad if I failed my first priest. I can still try and get it with my second priest. Being able to give that auto wound to a unit and then being able to have the ability to get crit mortals. makes it a lot more impactful, I think, than having the Mind Razor back. And even if you can get the Mind Razor, the combination of those, of having your hero anointed strike, your unit strike with crit auto wounds, getting the crit mortal wounds because you had Catechism on with damage 2. And if you can get it on the 7, so you're getting crit mortal wounds for 2 damage on a 5+, can be huge when you've got units with 3, potentially 4 attacks with Dance of Doom.
Yeah, and got to acknowledge that we've lost Martyr's Sacrifice and Sacrament of Blood. So losing Sacrament of Blood doesn't really do anything because it was manipulating the old blood rights table. So we haven't really lost anything there. And that was our unlimited prayer. So cool, move along. It's the loss of Martyr's Sacrifice where people would double down on that with the Sisters of Slaughter, for example. That loss does, and there's been another change to Sisters of Slaughter where I'm not using as many of them, and my 40 odd might sit in my display cabinet. Maybe only 20 come out or 10 come out, but certainly not doubling down on like 2 units of reinforced Sisters of Slaughter. But Catechism is good.
Yeah. Even Dance of Doom, like on a 4+, being able to do +1 attack to a unit. And then also if you get it on the 10, you're getting a fight twice ability as well, even though the second one strike last. It's still good. Like, these are not ridiculously high values for us, especially since we're used to banking those points as well. And as you said, like, being able to get +10 to a control score for a unit, like, say, your Canary, say that little unit that was going to grab like your Shadow Stalkers, and you're getting to ignore the first damage if you get on a 6, because a 6 again isn't that high. It's pretty good. Like, I like all of these. None of these like are a stinker for me. Makes me want to run more priests.
Yeah, well, there's going to be an interesting push and pull here with priests, so I'll spoil it right now. The Heart of Fury is now a spell, not a prayer, which makes it really interesting because now, like, there was always that pull where, like, I always had to have a priest to do the Heart of Fury, but now on the flip side, I always need a wizard to be able to cast all 3 of my manifestations. So it's really interesting. But like, obviously, Catechism and Dance are fantastic. Covenant of the Iron Heart is fantastic. I like all 3. Yes, I miss Martyr's Sacrifice. Yes, I miss, the ability to get D6 ritual points from an artifact. I think we're okay, and obviously you can still enjoy the Soggy War Scroll for the next couple of months. Now, we are getting to a point where we're going to talk about the new units, and I'm just going to take a short break here just to put on some numbing gel just to like fix up my tooth, and we're back in 1 minute. So all right, we're back, and my tooth has got some Bonjela. Shout out to you guys and your numbing benefits. We're now going to our 2 units, 1 being our Blood Hag, 2 being our new terrain feature. Yes, I put on my Daughters of Khaine is like a corrupted temple of it's like a Dale appreciates this from back in the old days of fantasy in a world that was. Morathi had a dark pact with Slaanesh, and
To Slaanesh.
the cult of Slaanesh, where Morathi could summon demons of Slaanesh, like them. So it was very, very cool. To a point where I've actually used Dexessa as my avatar. But this is not about me. This is about you and your new units. First one is indeed our Shrine of the Dark Tribute. As you can see here, health characteristic of 12, save of 4, 6 up save, 6 up ward. 2 things to call out here. First, we've got the Call to Murder. Your hero phase. Pick a blessing from the Blessing of Khaine ability that is active. The blessing is no longer active. Then pick a blessing that is not active. The blessing is now active. Remember, I said to you a little earlier that let's say you trigger the +3 movement and you no longer need it. You could absolutely then use the Call of Murder to go from having the 3 up extra move to going into like +1 to hit or like run and charge, whatever. But does call out there that you are not triggering a Blessing of Khaine. So you still can get a new one. It's just that you're swapping out an existing one for a different one. The other one, and one that I really love and got me thinking a lot here, is in Dark Communion. Oh, my
Communion.
mouth. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you've had a dental operation. You're good.
There's some usually like so your hero phase, I'm like, oh god, communion. Yes. Pick a friendly Daughters of Khaine unit. I thought a wizard or priest within 3 inches of this terrain feature to be the target. Notice that you're garrisoning on it. I expected this to be like a garrison kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like
same.
I expected it like the Auric
Lumineth
like one, like,
as well.
like the Auric one, like put idiot on top.
Yeah,
And there's plenty of space for the idiot to be on the top, by the
Mhm.
way. Anyway, the target is in dark say
Communion.
it. Communion. Thank you. God. Until this unit, oh my god, until the terrain feature uses this ability again, or this terrain feature is removed from the battlefield, whichever comes first. While the target is in dark communion, and I said it this time, communion. I remember I had it in real life once. You can re-roll one casting roll or one chanting roll for the target each turn. This is spicy. This is good.
How many times have you? I need this prayer to go off. I have 10 points banked for this prayer. Oh, look, I rolled a 1. Yeah. Even being able to cast, as I said, because it's the casting roll of a 1 as well. So, yeah, being able to re-roll that potential. I want to get that Mind Razor. I want to get the Black Horror off. And also, if I'm reading this correctly, you only need to be within 3 inches to become the Dark Communicant, and then you can walk away. Because it says when the target, the Dark Reunion, uses his ability, they have it until it's removed from the battlefield or the ability is used again. So I'm wondering, do I have to stay within 3 inches all the time to use this? Or do I just need to be within 3 inches to activate it, and then I can just wander off?
Ooh, that sounds like an FAQ.
Mm.
Yeah, because you could trigger it at the start of your turn. Then you move along. Dark Communion.
Because it says the target is in Dark Community until a terrain feature uses ability again, or until it's destroyed. So as long as you don't have someone else use it, that means technically you have it.
So top of turn, no, turn 1, I have my cauldron, my priest cauldron, or my snake cauldron next to the terrain feature. Trigger the Dark Communion. I don't use the Dark Communion that turn. I then move up the board. Then I go to use the ability and trigger the Dark Communion ability. Then I can get the reroll, even though I'm not within 3, and there might be another idiot at the back. Okay.
Because that's what it depends on. We need an FAQ, but from the way it's worded there, it makes me think that I can get the Dark Community and then move away. And unless I use it again on someone else or it's destroyed, I have Dark Communion.
I would, based on what you currently said, absolutely, I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that right now. But let's get a double check from the bosses. But
then that suddenly makes Morai interesting, where Morai the only person I want to use it. I get to re-roll my ones. You've got Crufrusa with her thing, because it's each turn as well, once each turn. Like being able to have that backup where you can re-roll that 1 when you really needed it is pretty good.
Well, it makes sense because it's only a very short range, right? And we don't really want a hero sitting within 3 inches, just sitting there. Like that actually makes complete sense. So I'm going to run with it. By the way, this is going to cost you 20 points, by the way. So this terrain feature is going to cost you 20 points in your list. I think it's points well spent. If you didn't have the points, I don't think your world ends. But having that, basically even just 1 reroll, cast, and chant, I think is valuable.
Yeah, I mean, for me, 20 points for being able to reroll the 1, let alone the change out the blessing if you want to switch things up so you're going to be more in combat. I had the -1 for shooting, but now I'm getting stuck in. I want that +1 to hit, +1 to wound. I have that flexibility. But yeah, as I said, the number of times I've had a turn not be as impactful because I needed that 1 prayer to go off and it failed. Having a reroll of it is just blissful.
And you don't need to have a Dark Communion to trigger the Blessing of Khaine swap. So if you want the reroll to cast and chanting, you absolutely will need the Dark Communion to within 3 inches of it. But even if everything in your whole army's up the board outside 3 of this, you could still swap out the Blessing of Khaine. So I think you get the 20 points. You absolutely will take this. And I'll be honest with you, as one sprue, it didn't take me long to build. It's actually really easy to build. So unlike my friends here, the Blood Hags, which were a little bit more finicky. Love them, by the way. I love
That's
these
so
models.
pretty.
They're very, very cool, very, very
Yeah.
dynamic, but there's a lot of connection points. There are a lot of connection points. So I had fun. I absolutely had fun. And I can't wait to paint them, but they're definitely finicky. Now, Blood Hags, let's talk Blood Hags. Blood Hags are going to cost you 140 points for 10. And what do you get? You get health 1, save 5, move 6, control 1. Got a little shooty attack there with range of 10 inches, 1 attack, 3s, 4s, Ren 1 for 1. Then they've got a melee attack, 3 attacks, 3s, 4s, Ren 1 for 1. Then they've got 2 key abilities. One being the Wicked Wardens, where while this unit is wholly within 12 inches of a Hag Queen on Cauldron, Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, or the Shrine of Dark Tribute, this unit's melee weapons have anti-charge +1 rend. Then you have the Crimson Offerings, where once per turn you declare a Blessing of Khaine. If an enemy unit was destroyed by this unit's combat attacks this turn, when resolving that ability, you can pick 2 blessings instead of 1. So I'm going to make a comment, and then Dale and I can pick this apart. This is a glorified Witch Elf unit. Like, if you think about it, the save isn't much better. The attack profile's fine. Got a little shooty attack. You're paying for the abilities. Like, you are paying for these abilities, right? Are they worth it? Dale, talk to me.
I think for 140 points, taking a unit of 20 is still a good call. More than that, I'm not sure. But the reason I like a unit of 20 is, first of all, that's going to be 21 10-inch 3+4+ Ren 1/1 shooting attack. So it gives you a little bit of shooting output, where maybe in the new version we don't have as much as we had before. The fact that they're a 5-up save base, 4-up with a cauldron or all at defense, but mixed with that witch brew we talked about earlier, the possibility of having that unrendable. So having a big unit of essentially zooped up witch elves being on a 4-up armor save, maybe with a 6-up ward, makes them more durable if I'm wanting to go fight, especially if I'm going for more of a defensive setup with the anti-charge. Being Ren 1 base with no anti-infantry, no charge like we've had before for our daughters, means they've got more flexibility. It means if we're going into monsters, if we're going into Cycles. And I actually think with the Gladiatrix, as we'll come to later on, being able to give the +1 rend as well, having a potential of rend free against an alpha striking army could be pretty good. They've got 3 attacks base. So again, think about those prayers we've already come across, being able to get a 4th attack, being able to get auto wound, potentially mortal crits on a 5+ with when you got your overlapping things. I think they're a solid unit. They're very pretty. I really like the models. They're very different than the rest of kind of the army. And I think having, a unit of 20 as kind of like that defensive line with your cauldron, but also has the ability to hit as well, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I've been toying with this a lot. By the way, my list does have them, so I really like them. I guess you got a 30-point difference between a unit of Witch Elves and a unit of Blood Hags, and maybe it's in my mind I was expecting a 4-up save rather than a 5-up save. But what you do get, right? So if you're within range of a Hag Queen on Cauldron, they're going to get a 5-up ward, which is really nice. Then add the +1 rend for the anti-charge. This unit is Crypt Guard. Basically, this is Flesh Eater Court's Crypt Guard, where they're going to work really well with a Cauldron. I can also see people taking a unit of 10, sitting on a backfield objective, being near a shrine, and being able to mostly handle anyone who wants to try to steal a backfield objective, especially anything like Deep Strike or Teleport. So they will be solid. I don't think you have to take a unit of 20. You could have 10 as home field protectors, but I think a unit of 20 is where you're at.
Yeah,
don't
I
think they're
think if
auto
you're
include.
playing the aggressive way to use the Crimson offerings, you want that big unit of 20 so you can buff them up and get those damage in, which is a good, like, again, when you're thinking about your army, some of the ways we have of taking, getting those blood offerings for the blood rights is harder. Having it where you can suddenly have two instead of one makes it good. Makes it like, okay, this is a unit I want to kind of like, if I'm taking 20, that's the unit I'm going to be buffing up.
100%. That is exactly why I'm taking them, to go for those double
Mhm.
blessings of Khaine. Especially when you're combining it with, let's say, an anointed cauldron, whatever the variety might be. Although it doesn't work on the snake cauldron, only your slaughter and hag varieties. So yes, I like them. I don't think they're auto include. I think they're solid. Um, I think the only challenge is that 140, they're the same price as 5 Blood Sisters. So from a damage
Mhm.
point of view, they're not doing as much damage as, like, basically a reinforced unit is 10 snakes. What would I prefer? I think this gives you more utility, but not as much killy.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that, especially with the changes of snakes. It becomes a preference.
Yeah, yeah, and you can obviously have both, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no musician, might be worth calling out too. So they do have a standard bearer,
Mm.
but no musician. So a little harder to rally. But again, if you're being near a slaughter queen on Cauldron, you're going to get some benefits if you happen
Yeah.
to take that. Where do you stand? Like, is this auto include for you? Is every list going to have a blood hags? Do you think like?
No, I mean, it's one of those things where definitely I think I would like a unit of 20 blood hags or a unit of 10 blood snakes. And especially with some of the other changes that we've seen that we come to soon. Um, the flexibility is a bit more there where before it wasn't as much. So yeah, I definitely want to try they're in my first list. I want to try just because I want to see how they can play out. I do like the as someone that runs avatars or cauldrons with the avatars, having that 10-inch shooting does really help in a lot of ways. Um, so it's not like a terrible shooting attack. Yeah, but they're definitely there's something a little bit different. They're a little bit more of a flexy role.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, I should say that you did run avatars. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Forget about
Sorry, that was an evil laugh. What has changed? What has changed a fair bit, right? So first off, rest in peace, Doomfire Warlocks technically. So you'll have them until the 1st of June 2027. So you'll have a year, you'll have the retirement tour for Doomfire Warlocks. In addition, your Avatar of Khaine is now a manifestation that can be only summoned by the Blood Rack Medusa on Shrine. Also, your 2 varieties of Sisters of Slaughter and Witch Elves are now one. So Sisters of Slaughter with Buckler, Witch Elves with Double Blade. There is no Witch Elves with Shield. There is no Sisters of Slaughter with Whip and Knife. It is just one streamlined profile. I called this. I said that, with Old World and this being an old kit, I was feeling, and I know Discord got upset with me at the time. I'm like, no, I just got this feeling, and I didn't actually know, but it kind of doesn't surprise me. But I will say that I'm disappointed because this did fill a really unique role that nothing else is going to fit into. It's not like a unit is coming in to fill in this slot. But I understand why they're gone. It's just a shame that I've gone and converted the crap out of this,
yeah.
and now I have a unit that's going to be not used.
So this wasn't a surprise to me either. I kind of presumed they would go at some point. Having an armies called Daughters of Khaine and this being the only male unit in the army of Daughters of Khaine kind of felt a bit strange to begin with. The fact that you could only use them as the Doomfire Warlocks and not the dual kit they used to be, with the Dark Riders. But yeah, it's a shame to lose our fastest unit because Canary aren't as fast. Also a unit that was a cheap additional wizard as well. I really enjoyed the free roll they had with the, if you roll 1 to a 3, you get the 4, and the speed they had, and the fact that they would rend 1 base, and yeah, they were a nice flexible unit. So they in some ways it will be missed. I'm also very interested to see what Games Workshop are going to do with a lot of their old box sets, because I think 80% of the box sets used to have Doomfire Warlocks in. So That means we'll
Yeah.
get a lot of new box sets in the future.
Yes. Yeah. So that's fair. And we'll get through all the other changes as well. So just like, but you still got this for the next. You've still got them for the next
Yeah.
12 months. Let's get
And are they
into the
pretty much the
units.
same as well? They've not changed.
What's that?
Did they give them a new scroll, or it's just literally the same scroll and you've got them until next year?
Well, we're gonna go through it right now.
Oh yeah,
That's
true. Yeah.
that's literally this part.
Yeah.
That ruined Christmas. But their points didn't change as well.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Let's talk about my favorite unit, which is Morathi. I haven't used it since third edition. I've been running double cauldron for a while. What has happened here? There is a lot on the screen here, both having Morathi and the Shadow Queen. Dale, without reading the screen, and I'll let people read the screen, how you feeling as a bit of an anti-Morathi kind of guy?
I am now more interested because the biggest thing I didn't like about Morathi was the maximum 3 wounds a turn. Because against lower to mid-level players that didn't know how to deal with that, it was felt like a bad thing. And then against high-level players that knew how to deal with that, it felt like she could just die too quickly. And now, for the first time in her existence in this edition, she doesn't have that anymore.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on here. So let me knock out a few pieces, right? So she has 15 health, was 12. She's lost the gaze of the Shadow Queen, that shooting attack. We've lost the crown of the serpent's melee weapon. We've seen an improvement to the tail. It has crit mortals. We've lost the Iron Heart of Khaine, which was they can only take 3 damage. She can't heal. She can't do anything. And then basically, like, she dies after hitting the 12. But what you've gotten instead is a fair amount, right? You've got this 2 bodies, 1 soul. So this unit can use this ability even if it's been destroyed. If you have used a Blessing of Khaine ability 3 times or more, pick a friendly Morathi, Khaine, or Shadow Queen that has been destroyed, set it up within 3 inches of the other one. So, and like there's other stuff here, right? I can have an aggressive Morathi because, like, most Morathi players were conservative. You'd hold back because you don't want to take any damage and you want to go in and, like, especially with Mind Ray, you want to Mind Razor her, go in, absolutely slap fest with her. Now I can be really aggressive. And as long as I trigger those 3 blessings of Khaine, especially what I talked about earlier about the Blood Hags being able to get 2 of them, if I only have 3, I get to bring back a Morathi. That's a game changer. In addition, there's a whole bunch of other things here, right? You've got the Coils of the Shadow Queen, which is a really cool rampage ability. You have the Crown of the Serpents as well. There's a whole bunch here that you roll 5 dice and you can pick a bunch of effects, whether it's dealing some damage, subtracting 1 from wound rolls. Like, there's so much here that and we're not even talking about Morathi Khaine. Like, this is
Yeah,
just
it's also the fact now that you don't, if one dies, the other one dies, that's gone, is also big. Because before, it was always the thing of like, cool, my big Shadow Queen went in, she didn't do what she needed to do. I'm suddenly taking all this damage. She's stuck, she's trapped, and I'm now going to lose my only wizard as well. So now you've got the flexibility where if one's been targeted, there's still a chance of bringing it back in your game, especially if you can get those blessings in. And yeah, it's once per battle, but being able to bring back a 15 wound monster that slaps is scary.
And what's really interesting, actually, there's a bit of a push and pull here, right? Because you're correct. I could sit Morathi in the back of my army, maybe even with my Dark Altar, and just slinging stuff. You know, a 3 casting wizard, amazing. But if you check out the right-hand side where you look at the Surge of Hatred, and I'm loving this being back, old Morathi being able to fight in the hero phase, well, pick either a friendly Shadow Queen wholly within 12 inches of this unit in combat, or a friendly non-hero Daughters of Khaine unit. If you pick a friendly Shadow Queen, it can immediately fight as if it was your combat phase, or you're dealing D3 mortals to the unit. So, if I have a Morathi within 12 of the Shadow Queen, so again putting her in harm's way, I could be getting a fighting Shadow Queen in the hero phase. That's scary as all hell.
Yeah.
especially when you look at something like Coils of the Shadow Queen, where basically on a 3+ against a hero or monster, I could be scoring crit hits on an unmodified 5.
Yep.
Plus all the other stuff from the crown, right? Like, she is going to be an incredible monster hunter. Like,
Mhm.
I cannot wait to unleash her onto that type of unit. But there's a real interesting interplay here where I could have Morathi out of harm's way. And maybe actually that's why I want to be taking the battle formation and not being able to be targeted outside of 9. Like, keep that little Morathi Khaine safe. There's so much here.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
and
mean,
there's the Iron Heart of Khaine. Sorry, sorry.
yeah.
There's an Iron Heart of Khaine where each time you perform a blood rite, I can heal D6 to the Shadow Queen.
Yeah. And you can also make her invisible to units that aren't in combat as well. So can you imagine that? A Shadow Queen flying around the board against KO where they can't shoot her unless they're in combat? That's brutal. Like, because she still slaps the way she did. And yeah, and even Little Marathi now having that 4-up ward save, so you can be more aggressive with her, especially
Yes.
sticking her near units as well. So she gets the lookout sir benefits, for the heroes. Yeah, it's and also to note as well with the Surge of Hatage is if you cast it on the non-Shadow Queen, it's every enemy unit in combat with them, not just one. So, and it's not even a dirty D3, it's D3 mortals. So having that multiple D3 mortals go off if you're in a lot of units in combat is good.
Divine Matriarch giving +1 to casting and chanting rolls to a friendly Daughters of Khaine priest or wizard. And what we also didn't talk about with the Iron Heart of Khaine, if you do perform the blood rite, remove this unit from the battlefield and set it up again on the battlefield more from 9. You want to keep within 12 of your little Shadow Queen. That's a nice way of doing it.
Yeah, it gives a lot of flexibility and a lot of craziness. And yeah, I just with the Crown of Serpents being able to roll 5 dice and on the 5+ pick one of the blow, but you can have more than one if you get a hot roll. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff in there. Like, even being able to hit something that's can't be healed now for the rest of that turn when you've got the Shadow Queen stuck in is great.
What I will say though, and Dale and I debated this for weeks now, is that the challenge you've got with Morathi is so Morathi 730. So you're still a sizable chunk of your army, and no surprise given you can bring her back if you've got 3 of those blessings of Khaine. The challenge you've got here is that Morathi really doesn't play into the anointed mechanics.
Mhm.
So to trigger the blood rites that we've just spoken about, like we just said that, Morathi Khaine, if you trigger a blood rite, gets to do a bunch of things. Guess what? 2 of those 5 options requires you to have an anointed to actually get into the blood rites. So you've got to get yourself a cauldron. All of a sudden, well, you don't have to get a cauldron, but like if you want to be able to do anything, you're going to be adding extra hero layers that are non-unique heroes, and you're going to start stacking up the points that are taking away from your units. This is a good unit, not an auto include. And I know for me, who's been list building around Morathi, because I'm so excited to have her back, I'm really lacking on the bodies. I'm really
Yeah.
lacking in it, and that worries me.
And especially all those fun Ironheart things, you need to have those blood rights. To be able to bring her back alive, you need to have 3 blood right blessings of Canes go off. So if your opponent knows what you need to do to score those, and he's gonna try and hold you back from getting them as much as possible, he could shut you down in a lot of ways. So he, she, they, whoever you're playing, if they know how to shut this down, you're gonna be struggling to be able to get your blood rights if you don't have another exalted sitting around.
I think out of the gates, I'm going to play the Shadow Queen. I can see myself settling outside of the Shadow Queen. I'm going to play it for a while, but I think I'm probably going to find a world where I'm playing single Cauldron and Cthulhu, double Cauldron, maybe even triple Cauldron. I can get 3 cauldrons for the same price as Morathi. So I really like this overall. Good stuff. Not an auto include, but definitely like a level, like an A tier kind of unit here. This is
Yeah.
solid. Morathi is back, baby. All right, this is your lane. I'm going to give you your swim lane. You're a Cthulhu kind of guy.
Mhm.
And obviously we've still got soggy Cthulhu for the next couple of months. Put
Yeah.
that to the side. Play it if you want to play it. This is War Scroll Cthulhu.
Yeah, so first of all, as you can see, she now has a 5-up ward from a 6-up ward. Always good to have that slightly better ward on a flying unit. She's now a priest too, like the soggy one, so that's good for her. She's gone up in points, yes, but having priest 2 on a model like that is very important to have, I feel. Her passive now is this Crone Seer ability. So basically, every time you perform a blood rite, you get to add a prophecy token to the Crone, and they stack. And I believe, because your blood rites are for the rest of the game, these are on you while you're still alive. So if you have 2 or more tokens, you get to target. Sorry, you cannot be picked to target of shooting or spell abilities by enemy units, which is great because you're flying. And that has always been a bit of a crutch. And I
Yeah.
believe getting 2 can be done okay. Like, it's not like a ridiculous out of their realm of being able to get. So sure, you can keep her safe until that comes into play. But as we start stacking them on more, if you have 3 or more tokens, you also get to reroll a modified chanting rolls of a 1, which again, whenever you're relying on the crone doing something and you suddenly roll that 1, it's a pain. And because you're a 2-cast priest, now this gets you outside of the box of relying on your new shrine, where every time I pray, I can reroll that 1 now, which is good, even for your counter prayers. Then the 4 one is when it gets really interesting, because now suddenly she cannot be hit with attacks rolling a 1 to a 4. So unless they roll a 5 or a 6, they ain't touching you, which suddenly makes you a lot more survivable. So it means you can potentially put her into harm's way a little bit more because she's got more of a chance of staying alive. They're not going to hit her unless you get a 5 or 6, but then you also have a 5 or a 6 ward save. So yeah, fun. Means I think she's more survivable, which is always useful. Like if I can get 2 soon as possible, being able to not worry about shooting and magic targeting her is very big. And then her prayers. So this is the interesting one. So I know people have been really enjoying the soggy crone where she's reducing ward saves by 1, shutting down command abilities. This is kind of a mix of both worlds. So her first one now is that this one's a new one, which is kind of, again, mixing in with what we had before, is very interesting at kind of that counterplay against enemy wizards or priests. So she gets to pick a visible enemy priest or wizard within 18 inches of her, and they get to subtract 1 from that unit's power level. So not only can you hit them for -1 to cast, but subtracting 1 for power level, especially on some armies that have that little like star priest that, oh, I need this guy to get this special thing off because I need it for this extra buff or something. And you can be like, sorry, no, you're not getting that anymore.
Imagine they've been spending turns trying to get those points up. They're ready to unleash that 10 up or 8 plus. You're like, level 1 is level 0. No prayers for you right now.
Kerfusa says no. Yeah. The second one is very similar to what we've had before. So pick a Daughters of Khaine infantry unit, and they get to make a normal move, which it does count as a run, working with our obviously spell. That's kind of been a standard one now around, so we know how that one works. The interesting thing about it now is it's Daughter of Khaine infantry. There is a slight change with some of our keywording, so that makes it a little bit more flexible with some of the other units in our army now. And then the last one is the one that basically you put it on a enemy unit within 12 inches, and that unit can't score critical attacks anymore. So again, depending on what you're playing, if you're suddenly against a Varangard player and you can put this on them, it makes things a lot nicer. Even against the Daughter of Khaine mirror match, being able to take away the opponent's crit auto wounds, crit mortals, it's really nice to have. And the fact of like most of these are casting, I believe, on I think they're 4.
What's that?
Yeah, prayer values of a 4 for all of these to cast them.
Yeah.
It's not the worst because we now have the channeling prayer as well. The fact of like pretty soon, either with the shrine or with her ability, she's going to be able to reroll 1s. Means she's going to be able to stack up points a bit more reliably, and also not have to dread rolling that 1 when you really needed that high level spell to go off. Because remember, if she gets on a 10, she gets to do 2 of these as well.
Yeah, great for counter casting as well through, magical intervention. She's very good. She's 220? Yeah, 220. She's
Also,
220
the
right
fact
now.
of this version is not stuck to a shrine either. So the
Correct.
older crone was stuck to a shrine. The newer version of the Krafusa wasn't, but then it's kind of like a hybrid between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, really good call. Again, love her. Not auto include, but she's very much better than the War Scroll, the index version of her. Doesn't bring back the unit for 1 CP like we've had in the past as well. So I think overall she's a solid little unit, and I think once you start stacking those blood right abilities, she's going to be very hard to handle. And you can avoid a lot of a lot. Oh, sorry. One more thing as well is the don't forget that the targeting of shooting and spells doesn't mean that she can be targeted for prayers. So she'll be able to do prayers, but shooting and spells, which are most likely what's going to get her, she can avoid with 2 blood ritual tokens.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like the flexibility of it. It's like, as you said, it's not an auto include, but she can do work, and especially with how good some of our other prayers are now and her own prayer, it just gives you a lot more, ideas of what you can go for and a little bit more flexibility and like, what am I facing? What are my threats? What do I really need to do?
We've got a couple of other war scrolls, and we might not. Yeah, we'll go through all the war scrolls. Maybe not spend as much time. I know I'm a Marathi guy. You're a Krathusa guy, so we're very passionate. But what we got on the screen here, by the way, is our first examples of the exalted abilities that we've spoken about, but we actually haven't had it on screen. So you can see the Slaughter Queen has the fanatical blade masters, and I put in brackets exalted. You can see the Slaughter Queen on the Cauldron of Blood has the icon of slaughter, which is your exalted ability. Your High Gladiatrix has the Paragon of Slaughter, which is the exalted ability. So remembering that this unit can always use this ability while it's on the table. If it was an anointed unit and it dies, it can then take this ability and give it to the next anointed. So, which makes it really interesting when you start. And like I've been playing around with like the High Gladiatrix, because that Paragon of Slaughter, being able to add +1 to the Ren characteristic, um, well, depending on if the unit's in combat or not, but like that's a really good ability, right? So by having it, and should that unit die, then giving it to, say, for example, a cauldron, um, that's a really good exalted ability to transfer across to one unit. Especially because like my cauldron is likely to be in combat, and in fact I want it to be in combat if it's an anointed ability. So having like a suicidal High Gladiatrix, let it die, pass that ability over to a cauldron who's really like high health, lots of really good abilities, and likely in combat. So I'm guaranteeing that +1 to the rend for that infantry unit within 12. There's a nice little combination that starts to open up. But you will also notice that it's an all sunshine and rainbows, is it, Dale? One of the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, we used to have a really cool ability, didn't we? That's no longer there
Yeah.
anymore.
So we've lost the cauldrons have lost +1 to chant, which is a
Yes.
shame. The cauldrons have lost our shooting attack. The cauldrons have lost our ability to give +1 attack from the Slaughter Queen and Cauldron. They've lost their impact hits. They still get to have the avatar attacks, but obviously they're now keyworded to. They're only the combat attacks, not the shooting.
Yes.
And they're now companions, so they don't get all the bells and whistles you get with everything else. But yeah, like even having the split attacks between the Hag Queen, Slaughter Queen, and the crew are all one profile now. It's still a fairly decent profile, but it
Yeah.
definitely feels like a big impact on how they used to be.
The other impact I was hoping to allude to is the Orgy of Slaughter, where they used to get +1 attack on a 3-up
Oh yeah,
to, yeah, like that's like there's a bunch of little things like that where we've lost.
Mhm.
But, it's still a solid war scroll. By the way, all 3 of your cauldrons are 280. I don't know how I feel about that. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the 50-point drop is nice on some of them, but as we'll see when we get to like the Hag Queen and Cauldron, it doesn't get the +1 armor save anymore. That's only the Slaughter Queen Cauldron gets that. Also the fact of, yeah, you need to have it to get the fun abilities, it needs to be exalted. So yeah, it's cool the fact of my my Exalted Slaughter Queen and Cauldron gets an additional effect for having a Hag Queen and Cauldron, but it means I only get to do the ability until the other one's dead to carry it over to my new one. So it's kind of like I get this really cool buff, but I only get to use half of it until this dies, and then it goes on to my other unit. But then suddenly I no longer have those 2 cauldrons to get that double ability. So yeah, different. I think with especially how when we've chatted about this is like we kind of in a way want our heroes to be able to die and pass on to someone else. But at 280, when we've lost quite a lot of the impact that they had, they used to be more of a key fighting piece. Now they're a bit more, okay. And the Gladiatrix is the cheapest hero, I think. That's the one unit where we can probably send them off to die to get the buff onto something else. But again, you're still losing potentially 120 points to get that.
Our cheapest hero is actually the Hag Queen on foot, which is 110.
Oh, okay.
And so is the Iron Scale Medusa. Sorry, the Medusa Iron Scale is 110 as well. But that's expensive, right? When you look at Hag Queen 110, Iron Scale Medusa 110, Slaughter Queen 130, Bloodwrack Medusa 140, High Gladiatrix 120. Like, they are quite expensive to go out and sacrifice, and I really wish I had like a Canary hero or some type of like cheap hero that I could go out and easily get the anointed stuff happening sooner. In fact, Medusa Iron Scale with a high movement plus some of those spells and prayers like run charge and extra movement, then that makes the Iron Scale to me really attractive. But like, I don't have like what you're going to find out really quickly is that I think the points are a little expensive for me. Maybe I'm just underestimating the value of some of these new abilities. But I don't know if I can afford the sacrifice anymore.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, it's like lost, lost, gain, worse than lost, 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 gain, but only if you're exalted. It's kind of like we seem to like lose a lot for what we're getting, and also the fact we can only do it one at a time. Feels a bit pricey.
We'll say though, like Slaughter Queen or Cauldron of Blood, +1 save bubble for the infantry, so that's really helpful. And then also you're getting extra rally dice, so you're essentially getting Zealous Orators here. And there's a spicy little combination that if you have both the Hag Queen on Cauldron and the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, you get an extra D3 rally in addition to the 3 extra rally plus your normal rally dice. That's a lot of rally dice that if you had like double Cauldron.
And if you have the sub-faction, that gives you the extra D3 guys back too. Yeah, you could be churning out a lot of troops. It definitely becomes down to it's like the choice game. It's like, do I want the double cauldron and the crone, or do I want magic as well? So then I need the double cauldron and the Bloodwrack Shrine. And as you said with Morathi, it's like Morathi and Krufusa could be great, but then I have no exalteds. So what do I have to take? What do I have to drop? I can't have everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of testing happening right now. By the way, Slaughter Queen also with the Fanatical Blade Master is a nice little ability. Obviously, Lost Orgy of Slaughter, we know what that is. Like, sucks. Get it. That's not a bad little ability. It's like the old Witch Brew where you used to be able to get it in advance of the table, right? Instead, you on a 3+, you get a Blessing of Khaine and it's active for a particular unit. So that's quite nice if you want to supercharge another unit. But we have way more units to talk about. The Hag Queen on Cauldron, the Bloodwrack Shrine, the Medusa Iron Scale. And as I said as well, the Bloodwrack Shrine is the only way to get the manifestation, which is the Avatar of Khaine. So that went up to 280. So it went up 80 points, which is massive. But you're essentially getting an extra war scroll. But you do have to summon it. And to no surprise, it has the summoning spell to bring on said Avatar.
She's also getting the new shooting attack from the Soggy, but with changes. So it looks like there's no crit 2 hits. Also, they don't have the ability to roll a wound characteristic for the rerolls. So in some ways it's worse, but they do have this ability now with being able to bring an avatar from her.
Yeah, it's I think you mentioned it with Cthulhu, it's like a middle ground war scroll. Like, it's
Mm.
not as good as SOG, but it's also not as bad as what it was. It's like this middle ground war scroll. Um yeah,
The
there's no
agonizing
reroll.
spasms is pretty interesting though.
After the shoot has been resolved, if all the attacks made part of this shooting ability on the same enemy unit and the enemy model was slain by the attacks, roll the dice on a 3+. The enemy unit has a maximum control score of 1 for the rest of the turn. Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think is really good. The Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood with Roaring Idol, where on a 3+, the target cannot banish a manifestation. Oh, my Heart of Fury is sitting in the middle of my army while I'm grinding it out with all my infantry. Oh, you want to banish my spell, Heart of Fury? It's staying. Or, as we just talked about, your Avatar of Khaine. Easiest way to get rid of Avatar of Khaine was to banish it.
Yeah.
Not anymore, not with a 3-up. So, to me, as much as I want that +1 to save from the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, I've gone Hag Queen because I want the 3-up and I want that 5-up ward for the unit protecting this.
Yeah, and this is where the juicy thing about having the Devil Cauldron as well is if you've taken this and this is your in your thing, and is your exalted, being able to have that 5-up ward on the 2 units. So either you could put them both on your 2 shrines or put them on your 2 big combat units that you're wanting to get stuck in. And it's not a speculation one, it's not a only when you charge, it's you have a 5-up ward for that turn is good, especially because it's not a roll as well, where before giving the ward save was a roll. Now it's just they have the roll. They have the ward save.
Yeah. Yeah, I think look, you know what? Like, even when you look at the profile, I love the fact that the Hag Queen and the Slaughter Queen have the exact same profile. Shrine Guardian, 9 attacks, 3s, 4s, Ren 1 for 2, Avatar Swords, 5 attacks, 3s, 3s, Ren 2 for 3. So it's still a very good combat threat, in addition to being a priest, in addition to some of the abilities. So again, that's kind of why I keep talking about it being the anointed, because it's just a perfect anointed, whether it's your initial choice or whether it is your secondary choice after it gains an exalted ability from someone else. I am struggling, and I talked about Morathi, right? When I take away my Cauldron from my Morathi list, I feel like I'm completely ditching this mechanic of anointed, and I'm putting myself at a much of a negative to even make the most of Morathi, given that she benefits from blood rights. So as much as like I want to drop it, and I've even done like Cthulhu and Morathi lists, I feel like I need a Cauldron, and it's a good option.
Yeah. And one thing to highlight, if you look down in that bottom right as well with the iron scale, keyword lost, Melusai.
Yes.
So that means
Why
it
does that
no
matter?
longer because doesn't that now mean because a lot of our buffs now are Daughters of Khaine
Oh
units
yeah.
where there used to be more you kind of were split between okay, I can buff Witch Elves or I can buff Melusai. Now we're all a lot more Daughters of Khaine, so it means a lot of the prayers can actually work on the snakes more.
Oh, yeah, 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 you're definitely not seeing that type of, that split anymore, and it's kinda going to this, I don't wanna call it a soup, but you don't have to go all in on snakes, all in on, oh, speaking of snakes, Morathi doesn't do a little thing like remember Morathi would get this was it the
Yeah,
is it
plus
charge
attack
roll
on
of an
snakes.
8? Yeah, the
Yeah,
+1 attack with charge roll of an 8. Yeah, that's gone as well if you hadn't noticed. But yes,
yeah.
good call out, good call out. I don't mind that, and obviously Iron Scale Fury as well is a good ability.
Yeah.
If you're taking
And
snakes, she's great.
yeah, and I think as well that the Cauldron of Blood is Daughters of Khaine units again, so it means you can have them on your snakes again for the +1 armor save.
Let me triple check that while I've got it in front of me. +1 save rolls for friendly visible Daughters of Khaine infantry units while they're wholly within
Yeah,
12, and your sisters, hag, stalkers, shadow stalkers, heart renders, life takers, Sisters of Slaughter, and Witch Elves are all infantry. So,
Yeah. So you get to
yeah,
benefit from it again.
yeah, it's not tied to elf.
Yep. Yeah. Which is nice. Means you get the flexibility because, yeah, you either faced it was either the Marathi Snake Army or it was the Cauldron Elf Army historically
Yeah,
in this recent edition. So, yeah, good. Yeah.
yeah, it's open up list building
Yeah.
way more. Um, as you can see here, Witch Elves are we've bundled the profile, but more important, I've just compared it to basically the same. So like double bladed Witch Elves or shielded Sisters of Slaughter. There's a lot going on here. I think really interestingly though, like one thing that I kind of got caught off by, I'm not surprised, is the once per army, like my heart renders. Love running multiple heart renders. They all do this shoot, then they all yeet themselves away. Can't do that anymore. Only one. So like the value of running multiple heart renders is has certainly dropped a little.
But it's 2d6 now, not 1d6. So, that one unit does have a little bit more potential flexi play for being able to like get into some of those far off places that they need to do. I remember before a lot of the time it's like, okay, I've got my 12 inch shooting range, but now I'm only moving d6. What if I roll bad? But now I can suddenly roll 2d6. So yeah, it's a little bit, but as you said, it makes it a lot more of a decision just to take one of each of those units. It's the
It's
same
helpful for
with
battle tactics. It was the battle tactic
yeah,
play, right?
yep.
Like you want to get into the corner, you want to, yeah. That's I'm gonna have to rethink that. But yeah, it's obviously makes sense. A lot of things went once per army.
Yeah. The change to the Life Takers one was pretty interesting. The fact that they're fight and flight, they still get to do a thing where they can move out of combat. Now, beforehand, it used to be you have to do, I think, a roll to get it. Now you can just do it and you can move that 12 inches, where before it was D6. So that's really nice again for that tactical play of being able to go in, hit something, and then vanish. But the fact that you get to do on a 2+, you get to inflict mortal damage to each unit that you fly over can be pretty interesting. It gives you like, okay, that unit of 5 could go in, hit something, and now it can just fly over a couple of units on its way out to go and tag an objective. Yeah, gives you a little bit interesting options. But again, they've lost their auto wound ability. Pretty much everything lost their free crit auto wound ability that we used to have, but that's because now with the prayer and the ability to get the mortal wounds from it would be pretty nuts to have everything still have auto wounds if we can just be throwing out crit mortal wounds everywhere.
Can I call out my favorite on this list?
Mm-hmm.
Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers have health 3 now.
Yeah, that's going to make a lot of people happy.
Wow.
Yes. And they didn't really, Blood Sisters didn't change in points as well.
No, Blood Sisters are still 140 and Blood Stalkers are 150, so they only went up 10 points.
Yeah. So now you can get the +1 armor save from the Cauldron of Blood, and you've got an extra wound.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's definitely good. I like that a lot. Interesting rule with the Blood Stalkers with the barbed arrows. And I know like your list has 2 units of 5, and we all used to have like the 1 unit of 10, or rewind it a couple of seasons ago when you had like 1 unit of 15 when you could double reinforce. Can't do that anymore. But really interesting rule to be able to subtract one dice from the unit's charge rolls, which makes it hard not to have a unit of Bloodstalkers in your list, because being able to turn people into a 1d6 charge, or even a Kragnos 3d6 down to a 2d6, can change the game.
Yeah, especially since you can take away the run and charge ability with the spell. And it's once per term army, so it looks like you can use this in counter shoot as well.
Once per turn reaction, you declare a shooting ability for this turn. So counter shot is a declare.
So yeah, it's a good thing, and especially just as you said, just having one unit for that chance to take away a dice is pretty good.
If you've got 2 units, then you basically make it on a 2+, as long as you're targeting the same unit. But other 3 up, being able to subtract 1 from the charge roll, and all of a sudden that army has put all of its buffs onto a unit. It's gotten super aggressive. It's ready to charge, and you turn a 2d6 into a 1d6. That can be a game changer.
For me, I really like the fact for the And again, it's this once per army ability, which is the shame. But the Sisters of the Slaughter being able to reduce -1 to hit and wound if they're in combat with an opponent, so you pick an enemy. I think that's pretty useful to have like a unit of 10 or 2 units of 10. They're not as defensive as they used to be with just being the -1 to hit versus anything attacking them. But being able to have them behind, say, that unit of Blood Hags. So, okay, this enemy's coming into me, and I'm suddenly able to have them tagged doing -1 to hit and -1 to wound. It's a nice help, but it's just a shame it's just once per army.
Speaking of shames as well, I've got to call out my biggest disappointment in Sisters of Slaughter, who, when, we all know the -1 to hit little, like, really good screen ability. Now that only applies if the unit charged. So they used to be a really good
Mm,
unit to grind things out. They don't grind anymore. So if I'm
yeah,
taking Sisters of Slaughter, they're likely MSU. I'm not taking blocks of them because like, they just can't hold things up. They
yeah.
and if I need to hold things up, I need to probably look at that 5-up ward and some other things rather than my SOSs.
Yeah, even the counter damage with the bladed bucklers is now gone. So, yeah, I find them a lot more now as being that little annoying unit that you just have to be able to support your bigger unit.
Yeah, and they also lost anti-infantry, which sucks too. Well, I mean, obviously, just it just means like, what's the role that they play? And I don't know what their role is anymore. Like, witch elves obviously are
Mhm.
much more of a damage dealer. They're a bit more like just they're annoying. This is annoying.
Yeah, yeah. I think I put 2 units of 10 in my list, but I now the fact of before I think I didn't hit it was once per army. I think I was might like knock it down to 1 unit of 10 and literally like this unit that sits behind my blood hags for the turn they get charged just to try and help reduce that damage. And then after that, they just hang around.
Like the challenge here is that Sisters of Slaughter are 110 for 10. Witch Elves are 120 for 10, and then Blood Hags are 140 for 10. So if you've got the 10 points, you're likely taking the Witch Elves every day of
Hmm.
the week. If you've got the extra points, you probably go Blood Hags or even Blood Sisters. Um, just that ability is just not as useful as it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the fact that it has to be on the opponent's charge turn makes it very different.
Yeah. Yeah, they used to be able to eat up a charge and grind it out with the +1 save really well, and, yeah, they could be really tanky, obviously, like, defensive, 5-up ward, but that role is starting to shift, so I will not be using them as much.
Yeah.
Last page before Dale and I show you some points and some of our lists, and then we can kind of blast through the AORs. So here is our manifestation. So again, I mentioned a little earlier, Heart of Fury is now a spell, not a prayer. It's a casting value of 6. You've got the what else? What else did I notice?
It's now -1 to wound for shooting and combat.
Mm,
Where before it was just originally, I think it was both, and then it became -1 for combat for so long, but now it's both. And it's also a manifestation, not a invocation.
yes. Yeah, yeah. So now you're subtracting 1 from wound rolls for attacks that target friendly Daughters of Khaine infantry, so it's not combat anymore, which is great.
Yeah, I like it.
Uh,
It's good. Any -1s to shooting in an army that's got paper thin armor is pretty good.
the blood rack, what was it I noticed that was on the blood rack?
I think the big thing is it's now got the 4 attacks instead of 3 because 3 just felt a little bit bad. It was mainly targeting. Yeah, it used to be I think just infantry heroes.
Heroes, yeah, it was a
Yeah,
infantry hero the sniper.
which was also like how many times do you in that position where you could get an infantry hero? But now it's infantry, it's
Once.
a enemy hero or monster. Makes it a little bit more effective. It makes it more fun for being able to get it out and throwing it into that big target. Because it's got quite a lot of wounds. It's quite tanky, and if it still kept its 4-up armor save and 6-up ward, that's a lot more durable than
Yep.
a lot of the manifestations now. Because the generic manifestations mostly went to a 6-up armor save. Yeah, it gives you something that's got a little bit more punch and can survive to be a bit more of a pain.
It's definitely a save of 4 plus, still health 10,
Mhm.
and 6-up ward. Still keeps its crit anti-hero and crit mortals.
Yeah.
So, it's a good little combat beast now.
And
Uh,
Blade Wind ignoring wards now is nice. Like the way the ruling was before, it was a dice roll, and then you could pick one target and it would lose its, the save thing. It couldn't better its save or something. But now you can just go in and yeah, you're gonna lose crit 2 hits, but being able to go in if it's still 9 attacks, if it's still freeze, Ren 1 damage, but you're ignoring wards, makes
yep.
it a little bit more of an assassin-y piece because it's only a 40 mil base, I think. It's quite small. So yeah, and it's quite fast too.
It's definitely still move 12, still 9 attacks, 3 threes, Ren 1 for 1. It's kind of like is it swords? Swords have got like a high volume of attacks. It's
Yep.
solid.
Yep.
Like it's a solid little piece. And then also your Avatar of Khaine. So given that it's now a manifestation, not a unit, really interesting, right? No longer a monster. Obviously, like the thing that I love is the fact that the Wrath of Khaine now gets to add extra attacks depending on how many blessings of Khaine you've got. And it's going to be able to benefit from the blessings of Khaine, even though it's a manifestation.
Yeah. And this is definitely a piece where if you can rack up those rights to get it to +3 attacks, can be pretty good because now it's down to base 3. But being able to have 6 attacks with those blessings in place, and it's the 40 mil base still. Yeah. I think losing the monster keyword will help it because there's a lot of stuff right now that's anti-monster, and they would just seem to be getting handed quite often by little units when they were only 7 wounds with a 3 up, 6 up. So the fact of now, yeah, I've lost being able to spam these, which I'll get one last event to be able to do it. But I like the fact it's still there and it's something a little bit different. So it's still got a nice little place.
Yeah, I'm just I just sad that I have to have a blood rack shrine. I get it. It's the only one that doesn't have it
Yeah.
on there, and like I rarely. Obviously, I use the soggy blood rack shrine, but I don't normally run a blood rack shrine. I'll be sad not to use it, and I don't want to have a blood rack shrine just to have an avatar.
Mhm.
But if I did, like, as you said, base of 3 attacks, 3 threes, Ren 2 for 3, get a bunch of blessings on, that's 6 attacks, 3 threes, Ren 2 for 3, get a couple of blessings, you could be hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s. I can't issue all out attack on it, but obviously you could bring it down through the blessings. And because it's a manifestation, I can keep bringing it back.
Yeah.
And
I
if I have
think
the Hag Queen on Cauldron, get the 3 up, you can't banish it.
I think the problem that we're going to face as a Daughters of Khaine player is historically we've been an army with maybe 2 or 3 casts max on average. And you're now in a position where Heart of Fury is a manifestation. The Avatar K is a manifestation. The other 2 manifestations are interesting, but we also have 3 solid spells. And with Marathi, she has her own solid War Scroll spell. So we're now into this position of is a 2 cast wizard going to be enough? Are we going to need to have a second 2 cast wizard, especially with the fact of the Doomfire Warlocks in a year time, they're going to be gone. So yeah, we can still use them now, but yeah, I'm second guessing only having 1 2 cast wizard in my list because everything from your running charges to like I really like the Black Horror against some local opponents, especially Carson and his ogres that a lot of people know about his record. Being able to shut down running charges on a lot of people's stuff is big.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's not going to be useful all the time,
No.
but when it happens, you'll be happy you've got it. Like on average, I don't care about run and charge in most situations, but there'll be some things where like shutting off a run will be, especially like if I've got like a redeploy, if I've got like, you were 7 inches away and you needed that, or like there was a bunch of little mechanics and turn off like the 1d6 to charge. Like there's a lot of cool little pieces here. And by the way, here are the points. I assume nothing's going to change. This is the last update that I've gotten from Games Workshop on the new points. Warcom may have any tweaks, but everything else here, obviously, this is the soggy stuff. There's no soggy stuff on here.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any changes to SOG anyway, to be honest. Um, But I'm sure a few of you were wondering, like, what do our lists look like? I might give Dale just a quick minute to kind of like go over his initial thinking. Again, this is like not enough testing, and then we'll power through with the Armies of Renown.
Yeah, I was just working out in my head, 4 shrines is 1,120 points. So I could take 2 Medusa shrines and then one of each of the Hag Queen ones. It's like, ooh, could I do that? But no. So my idea behind this was I was toying between if I wanted to go Coven and ignore that line of sight stuff if I'm on objectives, or if I want to be more aggressive. So I've gone for the more aggressive route. So I did the Cold Hearted Murderers with the Manifestations of Khaine, the Prayers of Khaine. And my idea behind this one is, is trying to be a little bit more aggressive. So I've got the Cauldron there with the Hand of Khaine for that extra, chance of killing those little heroes, getting the strike twice. She's got the Witch Brew for being able to give herself, or the Blood Hags, the ignoring the rendered, negative save modifiers. I've kind of get a little bit of flexibility in terms of units. So I've got the free casts, because I've got the Crone and the Cauldron, and I have the 2 spells. But yeah, I've got the Gladiatrix in there if I want that to be a little cheeky sacrifice unit, maybe be a speed bump, get in the way. I took one of each of the Heart Renders as the Light and Life Takers too, again, because if I can drop one down early and get it killed off to give me an ability, or have it cheekily be around the place of power being like, oh no, my little unit is there, it could die. Oh, what a shame, no. But also being able to steal objectives, being able to use those abilities where I can like go in, do some damage, and then fly over and hit a couple of little units on the way out. Does it feel a little light on bodies? In a little way, yeah. Like I think the second unit of Sister to Slaughter will probably go for something else. Maybe another Chimera unit. My main reliance for damage is going to be having those cauldrons be able to do damage in combat, but also getting the Blood Hags or the Witch Elves to have the auto wound or the crit mortals if possible, with the extra attack. So, I've got the redundancy there, or even being able to push the 2 units and have both having auto wounds could help. So I've tried to go for like something with a little bit of flexibility in play, a little bit of way to get my blood rights, but also tactics options like are not great. I don't really want to go for scouting in this army because I want everything to be doing damage in combat or dead. So with no way of being able to recur units anymore, now puts me into, and no Doomfire Warlocks for those sort of thing, it puts me now into the point of where, okay, it limits me on what my options are. Again, we're looking at potentially a new general handbook with the soggy changes in a couple of months. So we've just got to play with these for now. But yeah, I think this gives me something a little bit interesting, flexible. I do like the fact that the Gladiatrix now, if you're in combat, you automatically get the rend, where before it was always the dice roll.
Yeah.
I think that's good. It is in your hero phase, so you got to remember that and play around it. So there's going to be a lot of things where you're going to be relying on a lot of 3+ rolls. But at least now with the redundancy in the shrine and the Crone's ability to reroll ones, I think that's going to help me feel a little bit better about my prayer play. Like not having to stress that, great, I just did all this to get this one thing off and I just rolled the 1. Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's my idea. But I do really like Morathi as well, which will come to your list on that.
Yeah, and I haven't played Morathi in 4th edition. The last time I played with her, it was 3rd edition, so I'm really curious to play with her. You'll notice that I've also picked Twilit Sorceries because I think there's something in there, because I talked about like Morathi being within 12 inches of the Shadow Queen to do the fight first in to fight in the hero phase. And I'm wondering if Twilit Sorceries through the Umbral Spell Portal will allow me to keep up with Shadow Queen without having to rely on the 9-inch teleport when I trigger a blood right, and instead allows me to spend those points on like the D6 heal and other features. So
Especially with Retreat in Charge of Morathi and getting Mind Razor back on. If using the Twilight Sorceries, having that extra. Yeah.
it does mean though that casting through Umbral Spell Portal is going to add +1 to the cast of the spell, so that puts Mind Razor back on an 8 and some of these things. But I just think that Morathi being able to keep her a little bit out of harm's way and still be able to impact the Shadow Queen, there's something in there that I want to test. I don't know if it's enough, but This army is much more aggressive, right? Obviously, I've gone Morathi with the Shadow Queen. Obviously, the high spell potential from Little Morathi. Obviously, the kill power. I want to generate those blessings as quick as possible, which is where I've got the 20 Blood Hags, the Hag Queen on Cauldron. I'll likely make the High Gladiatrix my first anointed, and then swap it over to the Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood. I've gone the Hag Queen over the Slaughter Queen, even though I want the +1 to the save. I just think that the 5-up ward and the 3-up can't banish my invocations like Heart of Fury is worth more than the +1 save bubble, as much as I think I'm gonna miss it. I've made the hard choice.
Especially
And
because those Blood Sisters are now a 30 wound block with a potential 5-up ward, then yeah.
I've also gone the Crimson Draft for that reroll of charge. Then obviously you'll be able to use the trigger for the additional charge, especially in a counter charge. So the and like I've debated, like, do I need the High Gladiatrix? Do I drop the High Gladiatrix to get a unit of Khaine, or do I pull back the Blood Hags and keep them as a unit of 10 that sits on a backfield objective? And I'm like, well, no, because I want the Blessings of Khaine, so I need the 20. I don't think 10 is enough. I feel that, like, I'm one unit too light. Like, I feel like I need one unit, whether it's a unit of 5 Khaine or a unit of Shadow Stalkers. There's just one unit that's missing, and I wonder if I'm better off with 2 cauldrons and a few more troops. But in the meantime, I'm gonna just focus on Morathi and have fun with her because it's been a while.
Yeah. I need to think of a way to shoehorn 10 Blood Sisters into my list because I think they have a lot of now they can get the buffs that they couldn't get before. I think they can have a lot of play again. And they're a fast 8-inch movement unit. If you can get that extra 3 inches from the Blood Rights and run in charge with those crit auto wounds and the crit mortals with that extra damage.
Which is also why I'm also debating going, instead of having a High Gladiatrix, swapping that out to the Iron Scale, because then the Iron Scale is similar points value, having the movement of 8, which means that I can, if I want to sacrifice this unit, it's much easier to get a movement 8 characteristic Iron Scale in combat than it will be the movement of 5 or 6, the High Gladiatrix. So if I really need that aggressive play, get it in front of a place of power, go try to get a couple of Blood Rights triggered, then I think the Iron Scale is better off for that.
Yeah.
But the Exalted ability isn't as valuable as the High Gladiatrix. So there's just so many great options, which is good. It's a really fun puzzle, but also a frustrating one because I can't have everything in my list, which is it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else from you on obviously, like, these are just our initial thinkings, right? And like as we keep playing this out, we'll go, oh shit, Morathi's amazing, and I'm gonna double down on her, or actually, I'm gonna go Hag Queen, not Slaughter Queen, or I need the other one, or
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's almost like, do I just need to go down and even like reduce some of those heroes? So, like, do I have to have the Cronin if I want to take another Cauldron or take another unit, or do I have to go back to like bare roots and try and just have more units in right now? Because the units are pretty good, and if as long as you can get like 1 or 2 Blood Rights off still, you can get some good things going, and especially if you're relying more on those Blood Hags, so you can get 2 for the price of 1 kind of thing. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of months testing different ideas, but at least it means the flexibility is back in. I don't have to take an army of Daughters of Khaine elves and not have any snakes in, and they just sit in a box doing nothing for X months.
yeah, and vice versa, right? Like how many it's all snakes and no elves. I think they've really unlocked this, which is really helpful. Speaking of other helpful things, if you somebody who likes to play with armies of Renown, I'll be honest, I don't think either of these are like your 4-0 type 4 or 5-0 type armies. They're much more probably suited to RTTs, these ones. If you like the old if you like the old table, there's certainly like something similar here with like the Arena of Slaughter. So, by the way, this is the champions of the arena. You build your army based around High Gladiatrix, Hag Queen, Slaughter Queen, Blood Hag, Sisters of Slaughter, Witch Elves, no Regiments of Renown. And there's some little fun, interesting abilities where you can bring a unit back at half strength, and you get +1 to hit, +1 to wound, blah 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 blah. Fun little thing. Certainly restricted on the things you can take. This is probably like mass spam of stuff, like because there's no cauldrons here. It's just like Slaughter Queen, Hag Queen.
It's like lots of little heroes and just units of elves.
It's like playing Dark Oath, basically. It's just like all the Dark Oath wave. Just like send all of the idiots out there, and you're gonna flood the board, and it'll be fun. But you're missing your toys.
And you could take one of each hero and just have them all die, and then you've just got one zooped up hero hiding in the middle of the army, just trying to hold all these buffs together.
Which, although to be fair as well, like if you just run that type of list, like you're probably just better off using the regular Battletome because at least you get rewarded from them dying, right? And then there's a couple of extra things here. The fact that the killing game, you get +1 attacks, rend, and damage again on a High Gladiatrix. This again, there's some fun things in here. I don't want to spend too much time on it. One, because we've spent 2 hours talking about the Battletome. Two, 99% of people don't actually run Armies of Renown, and I don't think either of these are worthy of taking over the regular Battletome.
I think it's one of those, Jeff. It's like if you're going to an RTT and you know what roughly your meta is like, and you just want to go in and take something completely different that is just mass bodies of elves with a couple of heroes doing things, then you take something like this. But otherwise, if you're going to a normal standard event or just games day or something, you probably want something that's got that more durability and flexibility, and you're not just YOLOing it with one line of troops.
Yeah, and if you've got like a good back, like pushing all these models, throw your back out significantly. But you're gonna get what this does. Great, move along. We then have another one, which is this one makes me happy.
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai never dies. So you got Zainthar Kai. She's back, baby. So what do you got here? Dark Majesty. This one has a little bit more play. I still think it's restrictive, but it's got this has more popularity choice because like who wants to run all the witch elves? What was I looking at? There was one ability I wanted to call out. Oh, the fuck
I think
up
this is one of the ones where you're like, if you're going just Morathi and then you just want lots of snakes and you don't care about the exalted kind of rulings and stuff, then maybe this is something you kind of try out and just go for some of this other, you still need some, a lot of this is like non-hero unit targeted, non-hero Zainthar Kai unit. So it's like more about the Shadow Queen and Morathi affecting the other units around her.
Yes, and there's some interesting things here with the matriarch of the Zainthar Kai, for example. So spend a command point, pick one of the following movement characteristic of 12 and fly. For Morathi Khaine, you can use the Iron Heart of Khaine as if because there's no blood rights here, so you don't get to use the blood right triggers. But this obviously allows you to bypass it because you give up when you use an Army of Renown. You give up all of your battle traits, formations, and stuff. Basically tapping into some of the things like being able to bring back a non-unique Zainthar Kai hero. Again, cool, fun, much better than the last one, but certainly not for me.
Yeah, and then she also loses Mind Razor access, so you're falling back onto these other different spells. So even though again Mind Razor's changed a lot, it was still very useful when you've got Morathi.
Yeah, you do get some unique spells here. So, for example, you've got Ethereal Grace giving you +2 to your movement characteristic. You can basically do Shadow Leap, basically remove the target from the battlefield, set up again wholly within more than 9 inches from enemy units, and obviously you strike first as well on a Zainthar Kai unit. So there's some fun stuff in there. Just depends on what you like. And I tell you what, I don't like, Dale. One of the regiments of Renown, because it's a High Gladiatrix and 10 Sisters of Slaughter. Who wants that regiment of Renown? And why?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw those and I was looking at them going, so one of them's kind of interesting. It's the 5 Canary Heartrenders and the 5 Canary Life Takers, but it's also 40 more points than it normally costs. And, if you're maybe an order army and you have problems with having deep striking units or fast units, like maybe Fire Slayers or something like that, then yeah, it gives you something, a bit of an option. But yeah, who's going to take a Gladiatrix that only buffs Daughters of Khaine units and 10 of the most average now Sisters of Slaughter?
But why would I even pay 240 for 2 units of Canary?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's there's a tax.
What does the special rule for them do? Because I didn't see that.
So fierce competition. Each time a unit in this regiment of renown uses an ability, and the enemy units were slain by that ability. We all know that Canary don't do anything to slay anyone. They're not there to slay anything. After that ability has been resolved, the unit that used the ability is preeminent, and the other unit in the regiment of renown is overlooked. Weapons used by an overlooked unit in the regiment have crit auto wounds. So if I slay something with my heart renders with an ability, then I get my life takers to have crit auto wounds with a unit of 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No thanks. Give me a Canary hero, then we'll talk.
Yeah, I'm still hoping that might happen at some point. It would look really cool.
I actually would really like.
I have like 30 of Canary as well. I have.
Other 25, but you have like 14 avatars, so
yeah.
Had so go Zelda.
Yeah. No, I'm just gonna put them on a shelf and make them look pretty and be like, remember when these were a thing? No, they were never a thing, Jill. Never.
These are for a display board. Display board it up.
Yeah.
Any closing comments? Because I know we rushed through that last part really quickly because we spent a lot of time on Daughters, but I guess like closing comments, like how are you feeling as a Daughters player? A lot has changed. Units have changed. Playstyle has changed. We've got to work for our blood rights table. Like, how are you feeling?
I'm cautiously optimistic that my hope is right now. I feel straight off the bat that we're kind of like a B plus, A minus kind of army. We're not as impactful as some of these other armies that have come out. A lot of our abilities rely on a 3+ roll, and I feel our heroes are a little bit more expensive, but we have more books coming out soon that's going to have an impact over the change of the meta, so maybe some of those might be up or down as well. The fact of we're also looking at potential new handbooks and stuff coming in the next couple of months too. I like the fact that the army has the flexibility of unit choice now, that the infantry keyword is across the snakes and elves, so my prayers work on both instead of being shoehorned into one or the other, so I can take that mixed arms again. I don't like the fact of I can only have one exalted in play at a time. It would be nice if there's a way of being able to get a second, or you could do something like maybe each turn you could pick who was the exalted instead of that one's the exalted until the other one dies. Because then at least I can pick, okay, I want to be more defensive right now, or I want to be more aggressive with this unit and be able to have it a little bit more free play. But I do like the fact of the blood rights. I could get them in both turns. So if I can think about my army right and play right, I can rack them up quite quickly. Also, the fact of I can pick and choose what I want when I want it. So I don't have to wait till turn 3 that +1 to hit. I don't have to wait for this, that, and the other. But the fact that the shrine as well lets me be able to swap them out also gives you that play of, okay, turn 1 and 2, I want to be more defensive, but then turn 3, I really need to be able to reach out and grab objectives. Or that turn 5 where I'm like, oh, I'm nowhere near the board edges, but now I can have an extra +3 movement or something like this. It just gives you that extra bit of flexibility. So I'm sad that we're going to be losing Doomfires, even though I don't use them all the time. They have been a good flex, but we still have them for a year. I'm very sad I'm not going to be able to get spam avatars anymore because that's really good fun.
You got a final hurrah. Like, let's be honest. You got one final hurrah.
Yeah, Yeah, false alarm, 11 avatars. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's going to be interesting waters. And I just like the idea of being able to try new things again and see what we can come up with, but also not be the army where everyone's straight away looking at us being like, oh God, you're Demons that's Inch or something like that, where it's that initial impact of all these shenanigans that you have, all this impact you have. It's like, okay, we have stuff, but it's also on dice rolls and we have to get our abilities off to have things work. So it's not a given. I don't automatically get my blood rights.
Yeah, look, I am planning on playing Doc, and to a point where I'm going to Old Town Throwdown in August, and that is likely what I'm going to play even in August. So obviously GHB aside, and obviously what they're going to focus on. I think this is going to be my next season's General Handbook army. Um, I am very curious on what my list is going to end up on. I'm always been an elf guy. Like I've always been huge on the elves. I love that Marathi's back. I love that Crethusa is a nice little war scroll when Sog drops. I like that there is Cauldron build, Marathi build, Crethusa build, Snake build, Elf build, Soup build. There's a lot of I'm spoiled for choices. There's stuff that I'm gonna miss. There's going to be stuff I'm gonna miss, whether it's the fight twice, whether it is going to be so there's a whole bunch of things that I'll miss, but I think it's a net positive.
Mhm.
I think the onus is just back on me as a player to build the right list, and it's probably more techy than it's ever been, where it used to be very simple and predictable. I think this is gonna reward good players.
Yeah, and there's no longer that crutch of like, did I get Mind Razor off? Oh, I need to change my plans. It's like now it's a nice to have, but with Catechism and stuff, there's ways around it. I am looking forward to that first time I get to run in with a unit of Witch Elves or Hags with the extra run from the Gladiatrix, with the crit mortals on fives, with the extra attack. That's what I'm waiting for right now. That when the Zenith aligns and you just go in and just destroy a unit, that'll be fun. But also you got to rely on a lot of things going off. So it's being able to come up with your army that can do your blood rights as well as score your tactics, but also still have play. You still have to be able to do stuff because you can't always rely on your toys going off.
I thought you were gonna say I can't wait for the first time, or I'll say it like I can't wait for the first time somebody gets Marathi back on the table and they go, what?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
huh?
15 wounds? Huh?
What? What? What?
Yeah.
And if you play it right, with the D6 heal, being able to rally, like, like it's going to be so liberating. It's also going to freak me out because I'm like, Marathi can take more than 3 damage. Like, I can't be like, I can't go in like that super tanky unit and laugh because I'm like, oh, you're taking the 3 damage. Like, so what? But being
And
able
it's
to
also
fight.
you can be like, "Oh, look, I'm on this objective. You can't see me. Ha ha ha." But then also it's like, "Oh, look, I've just healed D6 and I'm gonna rally as well." It's like, "What? What?"
And I'm gonna fight in the hero phase like
Mhm,
that was so fun. I loved fighting the
mhm.
hero phase Marathi. So I'm looking forward to it. At the same time, I'm looking forward. What I'm not looking forward to is I own 2 cauldrons of blood, and all of my cauldrons are based on Glutos. I don't want to buy a third Glutos. Like I can't afford to buy a third Glutos to get because I've got a blood snake one. I've got a slaughter queen. Um, I could probably just fake pretend that Slaughter Queen's a Hag Queen. No one will tell a difference. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this, and I think we'll have fun. It's going to be probably frustrating just to land the right list, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some slight points reductions by July, if
Yeah,
not
and it doesn't even
October.
have to be anything huge. Just I think a couple of tweaks from those heroes or something would make it a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, like a 10-point discount here and there, I think would make the world of difference. If I could just think that one extra unit in, I think I'd feel
Mhm.
good. I just feel like I'm one unit
Yeah.
not enough.
Yeah, especially if you feel you need to kind of, your army buffs is, oh look, the person dies and it passes on to someone else. It's like, yeah, but I don't want this 260-point unit to die right now. Thank you very much. Yeah, it just put a little bit of a, I want this unit to go and be aggressive and get that ability handed over and be able to get that right. But also, I don't want to waste 110 points or 120 points or even 100 points from a unit of Canary.
Yeah.
It's pricey.
Yeah, they are pricey. Dale, anyone you want to say hello to? Obviously, Five alum. Dayton does a great event up there. Good charity event.
Just really a good one too. You had them on recently, but Dudes of Sigmar to Roma and Damon. They recently put me up for an event. I went to visit. I'll be back up there again later in the year for their Northern Waste event. So we've got a really good community in the Pacific Northwest of Canada, especially going down to Seattle as well. So we've got everything from, there's a lot of good players in the region. You got like Matt Beasley, you've got, Fred, John Zozak. These people are playing for Team Canada and Team USA, and in Vancouver you've got like Carson and Matthias and stuff. So yeah, we got a lot of good community across the region. So big shout out to everyone in the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast of North America.
I'll be there in a couple of months' time. I'm lining up my taco trips. I can't wait. I can't get authentic Mexican in Australia, so I'm going to get fat on tacos. Dale, you're always a pleasure. Thank you for everyone for hanging on while I went through my my tooth thing. Sylvaneth, we recorded after this, so let's see how this one goes versus. But I'm way more passionate about Daughters of Khaine, and I'm probably gonna go and actually start painting some of this stuff. I really, really like it. And by the way, if you want to support the channel again, Warfire Minis, Element Games, Gap Games, depending on where you're from, support the channel. It does help a fair bit. And that's it. That's it. Bye. Go play, go Daughters of Khaine, and go talk on Discord. Tell me what works and why Morathi is not worth it, or like what your thoughts on our lists. All right. Well, that's actually really hurting. Bye, Dale. Bye, everybody.
Peace out.
Bye. Bye. Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AoS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a double one on a spell cast.